Chapter 16:21. Is everyone here? Along with this voice, a figure walked out from the crack in the void and glanced at everyone in the valley. Tianfang, where is Tianying? This was a middle-aged expert. His face was resolute, and revealed a great majesty. He looked at everyone but didn't see Mu Tianying. He couldn't help but ask. Reporting to Uncle, Tianying has been captured. Mu Tianfang said calmly. Captured? Who? Which demon clan? The middle-aged man couldn't help but ask. At this time, the only ones who could capture Mu Tianying were naturally the demon race. Although they were prepared for it, after all, anything could happen in the demon realm. But when it really happened, they still couldn't let it go. Although this time there were only 2 people from the Mu Jia, each of them was a peerless genius of the Mu Jia. Losing even one of them would be a huge loss. All the previous training would go down the drain. If they died in the battle, it would be fine. But if they were captured and some of the Imperial Court's secrets were interrogated, it would be a great crime. And the identity of this person was obvious. He was a celestial realm old ancestor of the Mu clan. Although he looked like a middle-aged man, he was actually a few thousand years old. Keeping his appearance unchanged was indeed nothing for top experts like them. It's not the demon clan! At this time, Mu Tianfang couldn't help but smile bitterly. If this matter was spread out, the Mu clan would definitely lose face. If it's not the demon clan, could it be the human clan? Could it be that someone dares to kidnap a disciple of the Mu clan? I think he's really daring. At this time, the old ancestor of the Mu clan glared angrily. The aura of his body instantly burst out and swept out majestically. It was like a sky full of waves. In an instant, it enveloped the entire valley. The vast and terrifying strength that belonged to the celestial realm spread out in an instant. Everyone instantly felt a powerful force like a mountain crushing down on them. Even though they were all top experts in the celestial realm, they still felt a strong pressure in front of the pressure of a celestial realm expert. Even if this old ancestor of the Mu clan used his full strength, they could even feel the strong pressure. Yes, he is from the human race. Granduncle, please look at the scoreboard. Yi Shiwen is currently at the top of the scoreboard. Mu Tianfang said faintly. First place. Aren't you guys the first place? He looked at the 4 great leaders in surprise. He had thought that the person at the top would definitely be one of them. Who would have thought that it wasn't? This was completely out of their expectations. It should be known that in the past, only the experts of the 4 great royal clans were at the top of the rankings. They didn't even need to use any cheating methods. Although those brothers and sisters had a lot of resources, they still couldn't compare to the experts of the royal clans. Just a normal competition was enough to eliminate the experts who weren't from the royal clans. If it was only the top few, it would be fine. In the past, there would always be a few people popping up. But if it was the first place, it seemed that there had never been an outsider. At this moment, he looked at the ranking and couldn't help but be stunned. His surname is Yi. Is he from the Yi family? He wasn't so ignorant that he didn't even know about the Yi family. However, he didn't care too much about it. Although the Yi family had many experts, they still couldn't be compared to the real royal family. That's right, it's the Yi family. Then, Mu Tianfang told him the whole story. Outrageous. He actually dared to kidnap the experts of our Mu clan. And he even dared to be so arrogant as to ask the elders to come and take him away. I want to see how arrogant this brat is. If the Yi family really lacks discipline, then I don't mind personally disciplining this junior on behalf of Yi Tianqiu. He is really out of control. This is a big crime and a capital crime, the old ancestor of the Mu clan said in an extremely angry manner. Obviously, he had completely ignored the fact that it was Ying Xianghai, Mu Tianying, and the others who had tried to kill Yi Shiwen first. In his opinion, nothing had happened to Yi Shiwen. So, he was actually holding on to this matter. Moreover, even if something had happened to Yi Shiwen, how could a guy from the whole clan be compared to the descendants of the royal clan? In the ancient times, they would have had the relationship of a monarch and a minister. Now, he was waiting for Yi Shiwen to show his face. Of course, he would only think about this in his heart. He wouldn't say it out loud. After all, they still had to pay attention to unity. There were so many descendants of the whole clan here. If they heard it, it wouldn't be good. Under the pressure of a powerful Heaven Realm expert, no one dared to say anything. It wasn't a good idea to directly challenge the dignity of a Heaven Realm expert. At the same time, Yishuan still didn't know what had happened at the gathering point in the valley. At this time, he was still cleaning up the experts of the demon clan. Without the leader of the Heaven Realm, the rest of the demon clan was very easy to clean up. Especially after the few Heaven Realm experts were cleaned up by Yishuan and the others, the rest of the demon clan couldn't withstand a single blow. Very quickly, they were all cleaned up. Yishuan, I really didn't think that you would actually do it in the end. What the heck, turning the tables in the last month? This kind of thing, probably only you can do it. Yixiong couldn't help but exclaim. If it was someone else, even if he heard it, he wouldn't believe it. But now, he saw it with his own eyes and experienced it personally. In the end, there's nothing mysterious about it. It's nothing more than killing a Heaven Realm expert, Yishuan said with a smile. You make it sound easy, but let them do it. Even the 4 young giants definitely wouldn't dare to say that they can do it. At least until now, among the younger generation, I've definitely not heard of anyone who has done it. You should be the first, Yixiong said with a smile. Yishukom, who was on the side, looked at Yishuan with a surprised expression. He thought that he had made enough progress during this period of time, but when he saw Yishuan in person, he realized that Yishuan's progress was even more amazing in comparison. Although he used the tool spirit to kill a Heaven Realm expert, it was also one of Yishuan's trump cards. He was also very clear that even if he used all his trump cards, he would not be able to kill a Heaven Realm expert. The difference between the two was too big, much bigger than the difference between the Law Phase Realm and the Heaven Realm. He currently had no way to overcome such a gap, but now Yishuan already had a way to overcome it. This was enough. He wasn't used to finding excuses for himself. The strong were the strong, the weak were the weak. It didn't matter. There was still a long way to go. The competition had just begun. A moment of strength and weakness didn't mean anything. Moreover, the most important thing was that he himself was very clear that although he was the son of God and had the bloodline of God, if there wasn't a competitor like Yishuan constantly reminding him that he was still too far away, he definitely wouldn't be able to reach this level at this age. Yishuan was like a benchmark on his path forward. He couldn't stop for even a moment, and he couldn't stop. I still have a long way to go. Wait until I can kill a Heaven Realm expert myself, Yishuan said with a smile. He didn't feel that a Heaven Realm expert was that unattainable. They could still be killed by them. You really dare to think. You know, if I can truly step into the Heaven Realm within 50 years, I feel that my progress is already very fast. Yixiong sighed and said, if we say that before the Heaven Realm, we can still rely on our talent and family's resources to do whatever we want, then after reaching the Heaven Realm, we can only rely on enduring until our deaths. In the future, the most important factor that determines whether we can improve quickly is opportunity. If we have the opportunity, it is possible to step into the Heaven Realm within 10 years. Yixiong said. I'm still too early, haha, Yishuan said with a smile. The others had already started to think about this matter, and he was only at the 6th level of the Heaven Realm. He was still far from the Heaven Realm. But it's going to be soon. With your cultivation progress, I'm afraid that within 10 years you will face this problem. You are all the best of this generation in our Yi clan. I can even tell you the truth. When I was your age, I was far inferior to you. With you guys here, the Yi clan will have a chance to flourish. Yixiong also sighed and said, between the few of them, after going through several life and death situations, their relationship had long been extraordinary. But among the 3 of you, I think the most optimistic is Su Kong. He is the son of God, and there are no obstacles in his cultivation. When the time comes, even if he cultivates to Tian Rini's level, it should be a natural thing. Although you and Qian Qian are both not bad, and have your own fortuitous encounters, in this stage, you most likely won't be able to beat him. And those others, although some of them are not your opponents now, their many years of foundation is enough to let them be ahead of you. Yi Qiong said. I understand, but I will not admit defeat so easily. Yi Shiwen said with a smile. I still have very important things to do. I will definitely not stop outside the heaven realm so easily. His expression was abnormally firm. Only Yi Qianqian seemed to understand a little. After everyone packed up, they began to rush to the gathering point. The time for the gathering was getting closer and closer. No one dared to delay. After flying for a day and a night, they finally arrived at the valley where the gathering point was located. Yi Shiwen had just stepped into the valley when suddenly, a tyrannical pressure directly shrouded him. You are Yi Shiwen? At that time, he would not have any spirit left, and his entire person would be sealed until he became a fool. And the most important thing was that he originally thought that since he came here on behalf of the Mu clan, then he could talk about the matter of compensation. If he didn't make the Mu clan vomit blood, how could he easily hand over the person? In the end, he didn't even have the chance to open his mouth, and the opposite party actually opened their mouth and wanted to suppress him for 1,000 years. What kind of bullshit reason was this? This was simply a fantasy. What, you look like this, are you not going to hand over the person? The Mu clan ancestor suddenly said with a serious face. I think you haven't used your brain for a long time, and your IQ has degenerated. Yi Shiwen couldn't help but laugh out of anger. You have to understand that they were the ones who sneak attacked me first. According to the rules, even if I kill them, no one can say anything. What did you say? The Mu clan ancestor couldn't help but get angry. This guy's words were full of daggers, and he was cursing people without using any dirty words. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Who would dare to say such words to him? After so many years, Yi Shiwen was definitely the first. I think you really don't understand human language. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, You want me to hand over the person? Sure, but you have to come up with a satisfactory price, otherwise don't even think about it. Everyone next to him was a little stunned looking at Yi Shiwen, who was arguing with the Mu clan ancestor. What was going on? Was he blackmailing the Mu clan? How audacious, actually daring to blackmail the royal family. Many people were already in awe of the Mu clan just by hearing the name. Talking to people from the Mu clan already made them tremble in fear, not to mention that he dared to blackmail the Mu clan. At this time, everyone finally understood what Yi Shiwen meant when he said that he would let the elders come. So that was what he meant. He didn't intend to let them go easily. This time he was in the right, so if he didn't blackmail them, how would he let them go? But the person in front of them wasn't a normal person, but a heaven realm expert. He wasn't some cabbage that could be easily dealt with. The danger naturally didn't need to be mentioned. Because of their identity, they could see a heaven realm expert before, which was why they understood how dangerous that heaven realm expert was. Although Yi Shiwen had killed a heaven realm expert before, but what kind of people were they? Although they didn't see it personally, they could more or less deduce that Yi Shiwen must have made a lot of preparations. It probably wasn't something that could be repeated under normal circumstances. If that wasn't the case, Yi Shiwen wouldn't have waited until the last few days to act. With his swift and decisive personality, he would have acted long ago. To go up against a celestial realm expert at this time wasn't a smart idea. At this time, only the few people from the Yi family and Green Luo weren't worried at all. That was because they knew how Yi Shiwen killed that heaven realm expert. Other people didn't know, but how could they? It was because they knew that they didn't need to worry. Okay, I think you have really fallen to the devil to actually do such a thing. Then, let me capture you. When the time comes, I will let your family head come personally to collect you. A junior actually dares to be so arrogant, daring to open a dye shop just because I gave you some face. The Mu clan old ancestor laughed coldly. As he said that, a huge aura rose from his body. The terrifying aura that belonged to the heaven realm swept out. There wasn't any fake at all, This was the true terrifying power that belonged to the heaven realm. He opened his hand and a giant hand appeared in the air, about to slide down towards Yishiwen. "Slap him in the face! Wake him up!" Yishiwen suddenly said without rhyme or reason. This made those who had been paying attention to Yishiwen's situation a little confused. But before they could really react, they saw a small white hand instantly appear in the air. It came in front of the Mu clan old ancestor like lightning and directly slapped him in the face. "Pa!" An extremely loud slap spread through the entire valley. Along with this slap, a blood-red handprint instantly appeared on the Mu clan old ancestor's face. The Mu clan old ancestor hadn't reacted yet. He was already dizzy from this slap. He completely didn't know what was going on. Even the others looked at the two of them dumbfoundedly, not knowing what was going on. Chapter 16:23. Everyone was a little dumbfounded. What was going on? Why was the Mu clan's ancestor suddenly slapped? The bloody palm print on the Mu clan ancestor's face wasn't fake. Blood was drawn out from that slap. Oh, right, it seemed like Yishiwen said he was going to slap him to wake him up. Everyone seemed to have their circuits working again. They suddenly remembered that it was indeed like that. Yishiwen said he was going to teach him a lesson, so he slapped him. Such a thing, if it was before, probably no one would believe it. What a joke. How could a heaven realm expert be taught a lesson so easily? He actually wanted to slap him. The person who suggested such a thing must be crazy. Even if this person had just displayed a miracle, turning the tables in one day, surpassing by Feng in one go, and taking first place. In everyone's eyes, he must have used some trick. This was completely different from fighting a heaven realm expert head-on. But now reality told them that Yishiwen did it, and he did it cleanly, breaking the Mu clan ancestor's momentum. The Mu clan ancestor still looked like he was knocked out and couldn't react for a while. To be able to make a heaven realm expert like him faint for so long, it could be seen how shocking this matter was to him. "You!" He looked at Yishiwen in disbelief. How did he do it? Even he didn't see it clearly. But what followed was a monstrous rage. He was a heaven realm expert, yet he was slapped in front of everyone. It was a great humiliation. "How is it? Are you awake now?" Yishiwen asked faintly. "How dare you! How dare you attack me!" The Mu clan ancestor seemed to have become muddle-headed from anger. "I think you're the one who's muddle-headed. Who do you think you are?" Yishiwen looked at him coldly and said, "You attacked me without asking first. I want to see how you're going to explain yourself. Do you think there's no one in the whole clan? Do you think we can be bullied by you?" Bai Feng looked at Yishiwen's eloquent appearance, and couldn't help but faintly smile. This guy was very interesting. He had forced the Mu clan's ancestor into a dead end with just a few words, and had placed himself in the position of the whole clan's spokesperson. In the eyes of the vast majority of loose cultivators, the Marquis clan was already a high and mighty privileged class. However, in reality, they still couldn't compare to the royal clan. There was still a huge gap between them. There were also many conflicts between them, especially between different camps. However, he also understood that the reason why Yishiwen was so confident wasn't because of his sharp tongue, but because of his tyrannical strength. If he didn't have tyrannical strength, then he would have already been captured by the Mu clan's ancestor. The Mu clan's ancestor might not dare to kill him directly, but he could still cripple him. Then, the Yi clan would really lose face if the Yi clan came to collect him. "What a sharp tongue!" The ancestor of the Mu clan was instantly enraged. The Jinyuan on his body swept out like a powerful ocean wave. If it was said that he did not care much before, then right now, he was already on full alert. A person who could casually slap him, no matter if he was serious or not, was an opponent worthy of caution. This time, he was really angry. A big hand appeared out of thin air. It was much faster than before, and directly rushed towards Yishiwen to grab him. "You're still not convinced? Let's fight again," Yishiwen said without rhyme or reason. Almost at the same time, a white palm appeared out of thin air, and directly fell towards the Mu clan's ancestor. I've been waiting for you. The Mu clan's ancestor sneered and said, You dared to sneak attack me. No matter who you are, I won't let you off easily. It turned out that the Mu clan's ancestor's attack on Yishiwen was fake. His real intention was to uncover the person behind Yishiwen. However, he was also very surprised. Why would such a tyrannical master submit to such a boy? If it were him, it would be impossible for him to submit to a warrior of celestial being realm. Even if the opposite party was like Mu Tianfang, a young master with boundless future prospects, it would still be impossible for him to submit to him wholeheartedly. And at this time, the other hand of the Mu clan's ancestor, who was hiding behind Yishiwen's back, directly moved. A long sword chopped out a fiery light that filled the sky. The raging flame soared into the sky, and it seemed as if it wanted to burn everything in the world into ashes. With an incomparably dreadful power, the long sword directly chopped down towards that white palm. Shwa! The Mu clan's ancestor's sword light was fast and ruthless. It almost instantly chopped down on that white palm. His face exposed a somewhat evil grin. It seemed as if he could see the miserable state of the opposite person when his hand was chopped off. Humph, daring to hit my face, I will make you pay with your life. However, what he didn't expect was that after his sword light directly chopped through the sky, it directly passed through this white palm. It seemed as if it was an illusion. It was fake. It couldn't cause any fundamental threat to this big hand. Not good! The Mu clan's ancestor immediately reacted. He was a battle-hardened man. He almost immediately guessed the reason. It wasn't fake, nor was it an illusion. It was just that its speed was too fast. Sure enough, he had just figured it out when that white palm in the void disappeared on the spot. And when it reappeared, it had already appeared in front of him. Although he had already guessed it, his speed wasn't fast enough. He couldn't evade it at all. He could only watch helplessly as this white palm once again slapped towards him. Don't even think about it! The Mu clan's ancestor angrily roared. If the slap just now could be said to be an accident, then if he were to be slapped again, then he would truly lose all face. Even if he jumped into the Yellow River, he wouldn't be able to wash himself clean. The pure energy on his body began to rumble. Like a powerful ocean wave, it began to roll out in circles. But it was useless. All the pure energy in his body became a joke in front of this white palm. After one slap, all of it shattered into pieces and turned into nothingness. It couldn't stop this white palm from getting closer and closer to his face. Slap! Another loud slap was heard. That white hand once again slapped the Mu clan's ancestor's face harshly. Everyone could only hear the sound. They could barely catch a glimpse of the movement. The movement was fast to the extreme. Fast. 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 By the time they realized what was happening, they realized that it was already over. Another slap appeared on the Mu clan's ancestor's face. There was one on each cheek, and it was very well proportioned. But at this moment, everyone felt like laughing. It was just too comical. A Heaven Realm expert was slapped twice in a row. This was probably the first time in history. Moreover, no one knew who did it. Anyway, it definitely wasn't Yishiwen. But at this moment, everyone was confused. Did Yishiwen have a Heaven Realm expert by his side? If that was the case, then everything could be explained. Why did Yishiwen have the ability to slaughter a Heaven Realm expert? It was because he was following a Heaven Realm expert, so it was naturally different. But more people started to be confused. Where did this Heaven Realm expert come from? Because according to the rules, families were definitely not allowed to send Heaven Realm experts to the demon world. If that was the case, it would immediately attract the attention of the higher-ups of the demon world. If that was the case, then those who entered the demon world wouldn't even have the first few months of free time. A Heaven Realm expert entering the demon world would quickly attract the attention of the higher-ups of the demon world. That was without a doubt. So how did he bring him in? How is it? Are you awake now? Yishiwen asked. His tone was calm as if he was asking a cat or dog. Slapping him in the face wasn't enough, he had to add more salt. Good, good, you actually dared to go against the rules and let your Yi family's celestial realm experts follow in. This is a death sentence, a death sentence. Everyone here might die because of your actions. I even suspect that so many people died because of you. The Mu clan ancestor roared in rage. He was slapped again, but the two of them couldn't see that his attack was completely useless. The first time was because he was careless, the second time was because he was prepared, but it was still useless. He was slapped again. At this time, the only thing he could think about was this. Instead, he became excited. He had caught Yishuan's weakness. As for the deaths of the others, it had nothing to do with him. He just wanted Yishuan to die. He had wanted to teach Yishuan a good lesson in the beginning, and establish the prestige of the Mu clan. However, his anger had already soared to the sky by now. So, he didn't care about what his original purpose was. I say, are you retarded or have you been beaten into a retard? Who told you that I brought a Heaven Realm Elder in? Yishuan laughed coldly in disdain. Which eye of yours saw that? If I really brought someone in, wouldn't the people from the royal court sense it? Are they all blind? Everyone thought about it. That was true. If someone really was brought in, would the royal court just sit there and do nothing? This kind of action was a dangerous move that would kill everyone. No matter how thick the royal court was, they wouldn't let such a thing happen. So what was going on? Then, let me capture you and see whether or not you brought anyone in. The Mu clan ancestor, who was furious to the extreme, shouted and exploded. Chapter 16:24. You still want to cause trouble? Yishuan instantly frowned, and his heart was filled with rage. Shwa! The Mu clan's ancestor moved instantly. He tore open the space and appeared behind Yishuan in an instant. A wave of fire laws condensed into a long sword in the void, and with lightning speed, it pierced towards Yishuan's head. I think you don't learn from your mistakes. At this moment, a cold voice came from the void, and immediately after, a big palm came down from the sky. Pa! This time, Yulian attacked with anger. She didn't stop like before, but slammed down ruthlessly. Pa! With a sound, the Mu clan's ancestor's skull seemed like it was going to crack, and he flew out on the spot. Everyone was a little dumbfounded as they watched the Mu clan's ancestor fly out like a ball. They couldn't believe it at all. What was going on? How could a celestial realm expert be so weak? Everyone immediately reacted. A celestial realm expert definitely couldn't be so weak. Then there was only one result, and that was that the person who attacked was much stronger than the Mu clan's ancestor. That was why he was able to beat the Mu clan's ancestor up so miserably without even showing his face. If you still don't wake up, I can make you wake up even more, Yishuan said coldly. He looked coldly at the Mu clan's ancestor who was sent flying, then glanced at everyone and said, Anyway, he is in my hands now. If everyone wants to take him back, then let your elders come and take him back. After speaking, Yishuan didn't care about the Mu clan's ancestor who was still dizzy from the slap, and directly stepped into the crack that led to the ancient space. His figure slowly disappeared, and the people of the Yi clan, Qing Luo, and even Yi Luan hurriedly followed. The rest of the people all looked at each other in disbelief. They couldn't believe that the situation had turned out like this. The Mu clan's ancestor came aggressively to find trouble with Yishuan, but in the end, he was beaten up by Yishuan. This was completely out of their expectations. The result was completely different from what they had expected. Yishuan hadn't even made a move himself, but he had relied on the mysterious man to ruthlessly tidy up the Mu clan's ancestor. Especially Mu Tianfang. His face was ashen. The Mu clan's patriarch had been beaten up so badly. It could be said that the Mu clan's prestige had suffered a huge blow. Yet he could only watch. There was no other way. Yishuan alone was terrifyingly strong. He could feel the looming aura hidden in his body. What he was really afraid of wasn't Yishuan, but the mysterious celestial realm expert who could beat up his old ancestor like a dead dog. This was the root cause of his fear. But at this time, he couldn't do anything. Luckily, Yi Shiwen didn't attack him. At this moment, he understood how Yi Shiwen felt before. A Heaven Realm expert could suddenly attack and threaten him. How terrifying was that? For the first time, he felt that his life was in danger. This time, the royal court struggle had finally come to an end under everyone's eyes. However, the result was out of everyone's expectations. Out of the hundreds of elites from the various families, only 40 or so people survived. Losing more than half of them, this loss could not be said to be small. However, it wasn't like they didn't gain anything from this event. The cultivation of the geniuses of the various families had a huge increase. Although they still couldn't be compared to the top seniors, it could be said that they had completely matured now. It wasn't appropriate to use the term younger generation to describe them anymore. What was even more shocking was that within the younger generation, there were a few people who quickly rose up. There was no need to talk about Fa Wushuang. He had a long history of fame and had long since challenged the top experts of the younger generation. He had grown up bit by bit, and everyone had long since made preparations. However, Yi Shiwen, Yi Qianqian, and Yi Shukong were completely out of the blue. Especially Yi Shiwen, he managed to turn the tables in one fell swoop and successfully seized the first place in one fell swoop. All of a sudden, he crushed all the outstanding heroes and won the championship, shocking the world. And the most important thing was that he wasn't in the lead all the way. If he had been in the lead all the way, then it wouldn't have mattered. However, Yi Shiwen had turned the tables at the last moment. This made his victory even more legendary. This was the first time the battle for the top 100 was carried out in such a way, so there wasn't anyone to use as a reference. But no matter what, he killed a Heaven Realm expert at the last moment, and became the champion. This would become a huge legend. Everyone was discussing this matter passionately. This is fake, right? Forget about that Fa Wushuang, this Yi Shiwen is even more overpowered. He actually killed a Heaven Realm expert. God, no matter how I look at it, it's fake. Heaven Realm expert, I didn't even dare to think that someone could really kill a Heaven Realm expert. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have been able to turn the tables. But the key is that with his strength, he definitely isn't a match for a Heaven Realm expert. How did he do it? I heard that he had a Heaven Realm expert by his side, which was why he was able to succeed. But didn't they say that Heaven Realm experts weren't allowed to follow? What is going on now? Everyone was in an uproar and started to discuss this matter. Especially the matter of Yi Shiwen killing a Heaven Realm expert. That was the focus of everyone's discussion. Like the Mu clan old ancestor, many people suspected whether or not Yi Shiwen had brought a Heaven Realm expert over. But very quickly, the royal dynasty came out to clarify that it was impossible. Before they entered, there would be experts watching from the side. It was impossible for someone to sneak in. Their suspicion meant that they were suspecting the royal dynasty. Everyone quickly thought through it. This didn't seem possible. If it wasn't through the royal dynasty, although they had other ways to enter the demon world, sending a Heaven Realm expert just for Yi Shiwen wasn't worth it no matter how they looked at it. A celestial realm expert was like a stabilizing force in any force. Losing one would hurt the strength of the force. Sending a celestial realm expert to the demon world for Yi Shiwen was a stupid move no matter how one looked at it. It shouldn't be possible. As for why Yi Shiwen had a Heaven Realm expert following him after entering the demon world, that became a mystery that everyone was confused about. But just as everyone was discussing how Yi Shiwen killed a celestial realm expert and ended up at the top of the rankings, another matter exploded out. That was Wuji Star Palace, Thunder Clan, Sun King race, and even the Yi family. There were people captured by Yi Shiwen. And as this rumor spread, the inside story and details of this matter became widely known. After knowing the truth, everyone burst into an uproar at once. Even at the critical moment of the demon invasion, this matter still became the core focus of everyone's discussion. Four geniuses that everyone knew worked together, but in the end, they were all defeated by Yi Shiwen. Moreover, it was 1 against 4. They weren't Yi Shiwen's match at all. In this battle, Yi Shiwen completely suppressed them. There were no signs of the Heaven Realm expert behind him interfering. This also caused many people's criticisms of Yi Shiwen to disappear. Originally, many people said that Yi Shiwen was arrogant because he had a Heaven Realm expert following him. That was why he could become the top of the rankings. His own strength wasn't enough for him to become the top. But as this matter was exposed, Yi Shiwen's strength started to be deeply rooted in everyone's hearts. To be able to win 1 against 4 and completely suppress them, this made many people feel that Yi Shiwen's combat strength was enough to be on the same level as the 4 giants. He was one of the 6 giants of the younger generation. This included Fa Wushuang. Many people felt that Fa Wushuang should have similar combat strength. Then, Yi Shiwen's words spread to the entire upper echelons of the human race. If you want to bring the 4 of them back, it's very simple. Just let your elders come and get them. No one had expected that Yi Shiwen would actually say such a thing. One must know that the people who had been captured by him weren't ordinary people, but the top geniuses of the major forces. Even Yi Kuang of the Yi family had been the number 1 genius of the Yi family before Yi Shiwen had risen to prominence. But now, he had unexpectedly fallen to this point. It was like a fight between 2 children. Now, they had to call their parents. Facing such an arrogant attitude from Yi Shiwen, the Limitless Star Palace, the Thunder Clan, and the Sun Clan's royal clan had sent out a message of extreme anger. They wanted the Yi family to give an explanation. Needless to say, Yi Zhenemo was burning with anger. He had spent a lot of effort to nurture Yi Kuang, but he had been caught by someone else. It was an extraordinary shame and humiliation. Let's not talk about how the Yi family would appease Yi Zhenemo. The Yi family had also insisted on being strong as usual. These marquis and royal clans had been unreasonable at first. But they had still been reasonable. Moreover, Yi Shiwen was on the side of reason this time. It was the 4 of them who had disregarded the overall situation. They had joined hands to deal with Yi Shiwen. However, they had obviously kicked an iron plate. Yi Shiwen was more tyrannical than them. Therefore, no one felt that the 4 of them were pitiful. Yi Shiwen hadn't killed them under such circumstances. It could be said that he had taken the overall situation into consideration. It was good enough that the Yi family hadn't asked them for an explanation at this time. But they still wanted to join hands to launch an attack. The Yi family wasn't to be trifled with. It was impossible for a war to break out between the various races under the premise of the devil race's invasion. However, they wouldn't give in to each other in a war of words. However, Yi Shiwen, who had stirred up such a big trouble, was hiding in his number 1 secret realm at this time. Chapter 1625. Now Yi Shiwen was the only one left in the entire number 1 secret realm. He did not recruit any followers in the first place. Moreover, Elder Yi had already left, so he was the only one left in the entire huge number 1 secret realm. It was not that no one was willing to be his follower. In fact, as his cultivation got higher and higher, his reputation in the Yi family became more and more prominent, and he was no longer in the initial state of obscurity. As long as he shouted, there would be thousands of pursuers, but this was meaningless to him. He was not very interested in this kind of thing. He had never done things like establishing his own force. Because he really did not have time to manage his own force. It was better to use the time for closed-door training. In front of him, there was a sacred egg wrapped in the endless power of wind and water. It was the egg of Kunping. He had now completely subdued the egg of Kunping, but he did not have the resources to hatch this egg. Think about what resources the previous Kunping used. 99 dragon veins, so many dragon veins. Perhaps even the Yi family could not come up with so many dragon veins, especially for the use of Kunping. According to Yi Shiwen's guess, Kunping, who was born under such circumstances, was likely to be born in the celestial being realm, or even higher. Yi Shiwen naturally did not have so many resources, unless he could seize the Demon King's treasure house. Otherwise, there was no chance at all. Even the Demon King's treasure house might not have 99 dragon veins. Even if the wealth in it was far more than 99 dragon veins, it would be difficult to collect them. Yi Shiwen was very clear about this, very clear. But it was impossible for him to give up on Kunping, so the only way was to lower the hatching standard. Although Kunping's strength might be far less than expected after it was born, there would always be a way to grow bit by bit. In other words, congenital deficiencies could be made up for with nurture. This was also the only way he could think of. Young master is really amazing. You even have Kunping's egg. Even in ancient times, Kunping's egg has never been obtained by others. Yulian appeared next to Yishiwen. She couldn't help but sigh when she saw Yishiwen carrying the Kunping's egg. Yishiwen didn't reply. Although there were terrifying existences in ancient times, and even gods existed, but the Kunping of that time was far more terrifying than the present one. It was said that it could even devour the gods. In the era of the demon race's heavenly court, it had even become the demon master, the master of 10,000 demons. Who dared to touch the egg of the rock? Wasn't that courting death? What's the point of having a Kunping egg? If it can't be hatched, it's just a piece of trash. Yishiwen sighed. He himself was already a bottomless pit that was consuming resources. Moreover, Kunping was also a pit within a pit. However, if one wanted to become a peerless expert, they would need to consume so many resources. However, someone will soon send me the things, Yishiwen said with a smile. Someone? Who is it? Yulian didn't know how to react. There was actually someone who personally came to the door. It had to be known that the amount of resources the Kunping required was an astronomical figure. Who would be so foolish as to deliver themselves to him? Yishiwen, get out here! An extremely loud roar came from the void, followed by a tyrannical aura instantly crushing down. In just an instant, all the formations of the human number 1 secret realm completely collapsed at once. See, I told you, someone is sending us resources, Yishiwen said with a smile. Yulian shielded Yishiwen as soon as this aura came crashing down on him. Boom! With a bang, all the formations of the entire human number 1 secret realm were completely destroyed. Although the formations of the human number 1 secret realm were said to be able to block the surprise attack of a celestial realm expert, in front of a celestial realm expert, all of this was still too weak. That's right, the person in front of him was a celestial realm expert. A top expert that Yishiwen had seen before, Yijinemo. And this time, it wasn't a spirit incarnation that descended, but a real body that descended. For an expert like him who guarded the gates of the demon-suppressing city all year round and never stepped out, it was clear just how depressed and furious he was that he had personally come knocking on the door. Yijinemo looked at Yishiwen with a livid face, his eyes extremely cold, and said, Let Yi Kuang go, then seal your cultivation and come with me to accept your punishment. Otherwise, even if the Patriarch punishes you, I will not let you go. I think you are also stupid. Yishiwen glanced at Yijinemo and said, This matter now, Yi Kuang wants to join forces with outsiders to kill me. This crime, even if I kill him on the spot, so what? Now you dare to clamor in front of me, I think you are very bored. Presumptuous. Yijinemo didn't care about the reason, he only remembered one thing. His disciple was kidnapped by Yishiwen. Are you going to hand him over or not? Yijinemo asked coldly. If you want me to hand him over, I can. 2 dragon veins, no bargaining, Yishiwen indifferently said. Yijinemo suddenly wanted to vomit blood. All right, 2 dragon veins. 1 dragon vein was enough to support the rise of a large loose cultivator sect. In the Yi family, even a colossus like the law enforcement hall did not have many dragon veins. Yishiwen was also very helpless. Damn it, he had never used such an extravagant degree of cultivation, but if Kunping didn't have such abnormal requirements, how could it be considered as one of the top 10 ancient ominous beasts? In ancient times, many people would tremble just by hearing the name of Kunping. In ancient times, it was unknown how many people had died in the mouth of Kunping. Moreover, it was simply impossible for these 2 dragon veins to hatch into Kunping. I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Yijinemo suddenly became furious. A big hand appeared in the sky and fell towards Yishiwen's direction. It was fast and urgent, it was unknown how many times more tyrannical it was compared to the Mu clan's ancestor. Yijin-mo was also one of the top masters in the Yi clan, so naturally, he had extraordinary strength. But before he could catch Yishiwen, a sword condensed by the Hades royal water appeared in the sky and directly slashed down. The sword light flashed in the sky. Bang! Yijin-mo's big hand was cut off on the spot. Who are you? Yijin-mo finally noticed the woman beside Yishiwen, who had an understated look on her face. Demon! Although Yulian's aura was hidden very well, how could she hide from Yijin-mo, who had been fighting with demons all year round? In other words, Yulian didn't intend to hide at all. Because it was not necessary at all. Yijin-mo's eyes flashed a bit of hostility. In the Yi clan, his attitude towards demons was the most radical. His eyes were full of killing intent when he looked at Yishiwen. He still remembered Yi Genshin's matter until now. In his eyes, Yishiwen was simply a remnant of the demon clan, and now he even brought back a demon master. His heart should be punished. No, he soon discovered that Yulian was not an ordinary demon, but a tool spirit. He could still distinguish this point clearly. But in any case, Yishiwen, a guy who was originally a very serious suspect, still carried traces of the demon clan. Well, you actually colluded with the demon clan. He looked at Yishiwen coldly and said, When did I collude with the demon clan? Is this considered collusion? If this is the case, wouldn't your demon-suppressing city lineage have been wiped out long ago? Yishiwen said faintly. One should know that many of the martial arts, instruments, and so on of the demon-suppressing city lineage had a deep relationship with the demon clan. Sometimes, even in order to deal with the demon clan, some people of the demon-suppressing city lineage practiced the demon clan's martial arts. These things were well known by the Yi clan's higher-ups, and they also acquiesced. After all, it was not important what martial arts one practiced. What really mattered was which side one's heart was on. Yijin-mo coldly looked at Yishiwen and Yulian. He had been flustered and exasperated a moment ago. But now, he had a kind of ice-cold and ruthless aura. It was an aura that had been honed for a long time in the front line against the demon clan. You don't need to look at me. I will naturally follow the young master's words since I'm following him. The demon clan has nothing to do with me. Yulian waved her hand and said. These tool spirits weren't human, but they weren't demons either. She was just following Yishiwen. If Yishiwen wanted to poke the sky, then she would also follow him. Moreover, you don't need to think about attacking again. Your martial power is profound, but it's nothing compared to mine, Yulian said faintly. Her words were unusually confident. Yijin-mo had at most thousands of years of cultivation and martial power. She didn't know whether it was hundreds of thousands of years or millions of years. Tool spirits' cultivation had always been slow. Especially before they had fully cultivated their spiritual wisdom, they needed a long time to cultivate. But this also gave them unparalleled profound martial power. Whether it was the human clan, the demon clan, or even the long-lived clan like the dragon clan, there was no way to compete with tool spirits in this aspect. In the case of the same realm, usually tool spirits often had profound martial power several times that of ordinary people. Unless one had an abnormal combat power like Yishiwen, ordinary people would have a headache when they encountered tool spirits of the same realm. Yijin-mo was also very clear about what tool spirits meant, especially tool spirits that were similar to his realm. Unless he had already entered the peak of the celestial realm, otherwise he wouldn't be able to suppress Yulian. Then, it would be difficult to forcefully attack. Thinking of this, his face suddenly became gloomy. Chapter 1626. Originally, he didn't think too much about it. He just wanted to rely on his tyrannical strength to take down Yishiwen. This was because Yi Zhentian wasn't in the Yi family. Instead, he was in the imperial court. He was following the lord of the Yi family on an expedition. He thought that he would definitely win, but who knew that there would be such a huge mistake? Yishiwen actually had such an expert by his side. At this moment, he finally recalled that Yishiwen had actually killed a Heaven Realm expert when no one expected it. He had completely turned the tables and successfully became the champion. After that, many people suspected that he had brought some celestial realm experts to the demon world. However, the higher-ups of the royal court came out to clarify, and this matter was barely suppressed. However, many people still had doubts in their hearts. This included Yizhenmo. If he wasn't ordinary, then he really couldn't imagine how Yi Shiwen had done it. However, all his problems had been easily solved now that he had seen Yu Lian. It seemed that she was Yi Shiwen's helper. Yi Shiwen had been able to reach the top of the rankings in one fell swoop because of this woman's help. What a huge move, a celestial realm expert. Any heaven realm expert would have their own trump cards. In theory, they would be hard to kill. Even if their level was higher, it would be hard to kill them. Just like before, although Yu Lian was much stronger than that demon race youth, she still couldn't stop him. Even if a heaven realm expert couldn't beat him, it would be hard for him to be killed. Especially when Yu Lian was the same as him, late-stage heaven realm cultivation. Just a little bit more, and she would be able to step into peak heaven realm. At that time, she would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the family head. He couldn't help but feel a little depressed. If he had the demon-suppressing mirror in his hand, even if the opponent was an antique like Yu Lian who had lived for God knows how long, he had the confidence to fight. That was because the demon-suppressing mirror had a really strong suppressive effect on the demon race. Unfortunately, ever since the whereabouts of the demon-suppressing mirror went missing, his fighting strength could be said to have been greatly reduced. At this time, if he were to face Yu Lian again, he would not have much confidence. He looked at the two of them with a gloomy expression. However, if he couldn't bring Yi Kuang back today, he would undoubtedly lose face. He was the city lord of the demon-suppressing city, but he couldn't do anything to a junior at this moment. It would be a huge joke if people knew about this. Hurry up and decide. I don't have so much time to talk nonsense with you. This is because you are also a member of my Yi family. If anyone else wants to take it away, they won't be able to do so without at least 5 dragon veins, Yi Shiwen said loudly. Yizhenmo had attacked him several times. However, in the end, he was still a member of the Yi clan. Moreover, he had fought against the devils for many years. So, he didn't want to be too ruthless. For some reason, when Yizhenmo heard Yi Shiwen say that if it was someone else, they would need at least 5 dragon veins, he suddenly felt a lot better in his heart. I'm definitely not the only unlucky one. At the same time, there are 3 other clans that have provoked this kid. With 3 clans at the bottom, no matter how miserable the demon-suppressing city faction was, it wouldn't be that miserable. 2 dragon veins was only about half of the others. This was also because there was no comparison. Previously, Yizhenmo felt that Yi Shiwen was simply asking for an exorbitant price. 2 dragon veins, he might as well rob them. This dragon vein could let a loose cultivator sect develop and prosper, and it could even prosper for many years. However, now that he thought that others would have to pay the price of 5 dragon veins, he immediately felt much better. Damn it, there was still a need for comparison. With comparison, he would feel that he was still very happy. Of course, he still didn't realize these things in his heart, but in fact, he had already started to think so. The most important reason was that he didn't have the slightest confidence that he could defeat the woman in front of him. The oppressive feeling that this woman gave him was too strong. Especially her cultivation, it was simply too thick. If his cultivation was like the Yangtze River or the Yellow River, then the cultivation of this woman in front of him was simply like the endless sea. Although profound martial power might not be able to transform into the strongest combat power, it was always a fundamental factor. Do you want to or not? Quickly decide. If you don't want 2 dragon veins, then forget it. That Yi Kuang can only be imprisoned forever, and finally repent for his crimes. Yi Shiwen continued. After thinking for a long time, although Yizhenmo really wanted to fight with Yu Lian, he still wasn't confident. Moreover, the most fundamental reason was that he was in the wrong. Yi Kuang and the other 3 joined forces to encircle Yi Shiwen. If they succeeded, then it would be fine, but they still failed. All right, I will bring you 2 dragon veins. Emo finally chose to compromise. He couldn't control Yishiwen in any aspect, so he could only bitterly give up. But in his heart, he was extremely afraid. Not long ago, Yishiwen was just an existence that he could completely crush with just a little bit of force. Now, even he couldn't control Yishiwen. Although Yijin Tian couldn't compete with him now, as long as this tool spirit was here, he couldn't do anything to Yishiwen. It was even more troublesome than ordinary experts. For example, although Yijin Tian also protected Yishiwen, there was no way he could always follow Yishiwen. However, this tool spirit was different. He could completely follow Yishiwen, so it was very difficult for him to find an opportunity to deal with Yishiwen. You wait for me! In the end, Emo could only glare at Yishiwen fiercely. Fortunately, this was not the worst outcome. If Yiquang were to die in Yishiwen's hands, then he would really have no place to cry. The demon-suppressing city had spent hundreds of years to cultivate Yiquang, and if he were to lose him, then the loss would be too great. Looking at Emo's figure finally leaving, Yishiwen smiled and said to Yulian, "Look, didn't someone send it here?" Yulian finally understood what Yishiwen meant. It turned out to be this. It's too unrealistic for me to hatch the Kunping egg by myself. I myself need an endless supply of spirit crystals. So, bringing along a Kunping egg would be a bit of a burden for me, Yishiwen said. Now, this Kunping egg had given him a dilemma. If he didn't have this opportunity, he didn't know when he would be able to hatch the Kunping egg. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He would never let go of this opportunity to extort money easily. Sure enough, Yijin Emo quickly sent 2 dragon veins over. With the nourishment of 2 dragon veins, the Kunping egg was much more charming than before. It could be forcefully hatched with 2 dragon veins. However, Yishiwen didn't force it because he knew very well that if he forcefully hatched the Kunping egg, not only would the Kunping be innately deficient, but there would also be no way to make up for it. He was still waiting for the other clans to send over the dragon veins. Yishiwen's offer to them was much more ruthless than to Yijin Emo. 5 dragon veins, no bargaining. Suddenly, the clans who knew about this were so angry that they almost vomited blood. The price of 1 dragon's vein could already be said to be priceless, let alone 5. *CK, if you're like this, why don't you just go rob someone? Of course, the other clans wouldn't agree. They even clamored and accused Yishiwen of not knowing how to unite. Under the background of the demon race's invasion, he actually wanted to extort money from his own people. However, Yishiwen looked like he wasn't anxious at all. Anyway, there was no harm in suppressing them for hundreds or thousands of years. Anyway, it was impossible for these people to rush into the Yi clan to snatch their people. After all, the Yi clan was a marquee clan, and the background was not a joke. How could they let others casually break in and take away their proudest disciple? That would really be a great shame. Even Yijin Emo wouldn't allow this. He had already handed over 2 dragon veins. How could he be satisfied if the other clans didn't cough up some blood? As for what those clans said about unity and so on, anyone who knew a little bit of inside information would look at it with disdain. After all, they were the ones who first joined hands to besiege Yishiwen. At that time, they didn't care about unity at all. Wasn't it a bit too late to talk about unity now? However, everyone was still very surprised by Yishiwen's conditions. 5 dragon veins. What kind of sky-high price was that? He really dared to shout it out. However, those clans didn't dare to say that their geniuses weren't worth this price. If they really said so, how could those geniuses bear it? From a calm point of view, 5 dragon veins were enough to support the prosperity of a large sect for many years. It was much more important than a genius. However, this was what they said, but they absolutely couldn't say it out loud. However, Yishiwen was still stubborn. There was no way to communicate at all. He only said one sentence, either hand over the dragon veins or get lost. Anyway, he had people in his hands. There was no harm in suppressing them for hundreds or thousands of years before letting them out. When those clans heard this, they were so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. If it was hundreds or thousands of years, they would have been completely crippled. Not to mention their peers, even their juniors would have surpassed them by a lot. So, what was the use of letting them out later? However, Yi Shiwen's words were useless. He didn't listen to anything. He only wanted one explanation, and that was the dragon veins. His greedy face was undoubtedly revealed. Moreover, it was an exorbitant demand. After a whole month, Limitless Star Palace was the first to be unable to hold on. In the end, they sent an elder to returning Shanghai with 5 dragon veins. After Limitless Star Palace, the Thunder Clan finally couldn't withstand the pressure from both inside and outside. They also sent an elder to bring Lei Zhenghua back with 5 dragon veins. At this time, everyone's eyes turned to the Mu clan. Although many people knew that Yi Shiwen had a master by his side, the temptation of 17 dragon veins was enough to make many people take the risk out of desperation. Especially those old monsters who were in closed-door training in the deep mountains and old forests. Ordinary people did not dare to have any ideas on Yi Shiwen. The news that he had a Heaven Realm master by his side was leaked out bit by bit, although no one knew the specific situation of Yu Lian. However, for ordinary people, the words Heaven Realm was enough to shock them. For these old monsters, it was far from enough because they themselves were Heaven Realm masters. They were already on the path of immortality. The value of 1 dragon vein could allow them to go further, let alone 17 dragon veins. The value was no different from robbing a dozen individual cultivation sections. Facing these covetous gazes, Yi Shiwen was even more ruthless. After directly rebuilding the formation of the number 1 secret realm, he directly buried 9 of the 17 dragon veins in the number 1 secret realm on the spot, directly arranging a 9 dragons origin formation. The 9 dragon veins condensed into the center of a spiritual vein, and directly placed the Kunping egg on it. This was the biggest price Yi Shiwen could pay so far. If it was less than 9 dragon veins, even if the Kunping hatched, it would ultimately affect his innate aptitude and even affect his acquired achievements. For the more tyrannical the race, the more important innate aptitude was. Innate aptitude and bloodline would affect their fundamental strength. Some tyrannical innate races could be born as Heaven Realm masters. Their starting point was high, so their future achievements would be high. Although 9 dragon veins were not as heaven-defying as 99 dragon veins, it was enough for the Kunping to be born normally. However, the condition was that all 9 dragon veins had to be consumed in one go. If it was 99 dragon veins, then it would not be absorbed in one go. At most, a part of it would be absorbed, and then after a certain period of time, these 99 dragon veins would slowly recover. From this point of view, dragon veins were like ordinary creatures. They had their own process of birth, growth, and finally death. As long as the dragon veins did not die naturally or were severely injured, they could recover little by little. Ordinary people would not be willing to absorb all the dragon veins in one go. That would be too much of a waste. However, Yi Shiwen could not care so much at this time. In order to hatch the Kunping, he could only take a risk. Anyway, too many resources had been wasted on him, so it was not a big deal to lose a little more. Among the remaining 8 dragon veins, one of them was directly buried in Tianyuan Mirror for Yimo to absorb. It could greatly accelerate Yimo's awakening. Another one was also given to Yulian to cultivate. With the assistance of a dragon vein in cultivation, it would no longer be a dream for Yulian to step into the Heaven Realm. Among the remaining 6 dragon veins, one of them was used by Yi Shiwen to feed the Mingxin ancient tree. The previous small dragon vein had almost been absorbed. That small dragon vein was not fully developed yet. It was not even 1% of the size of the dragon vein in Yi Shiwen's hand now. Now Yi Shiwen used a complete dragon vein to feed the Mingxin ancient tree. For now, it was definitely more than enough. Then, he arranged the remaining 5 dragon veins into the 5 chi sect formation for him to practice day and night. If this was known by outsiders, it was unknown how many people would vomit blood. Many people worked hard just to obtain a small part of a dragon vein. But when it came to Yi Shiwen, it was simply great. Everyone who saw it had a share. With these dragon veins guarding Yishuan's luck was simply monstrous. What kind of paradise could be compared with Yishuan's place? There was the 9 dragons imperial formation and the 5 Qi imperial formation. It was simply invincible. If ordinary people cultivated here for a period of time, not only would their cultivation advance by leaps and bounds, but most importantly, they would also be contaminated with dragon Qi. From then on, their luck would be extraordinary, and they would have a meteoric rise. After extorting a few clans, Yishuan didn't go out at all. This made many people who wanted to sneak attack him feel very depressed. Not everyone had the identity and convenience of Yijin Mo, who could easily enter the number 1 secret territory. If there were foreign enemies who wanted to invade the number 1 secret realm, it was equivalent to courting death. After obtaining these dragon veins, Yishuan was like an otaku, completely guarding the number 1 secret realm. He did not take a single step out, and began to constantly mobilize the power of the dragon veins, hatching the Kunping. This was also Yishuan's first time enjoying the benefits of the paradise. Compared to his current cultivation speed, the past was simply rubbish. In the past, the spiritual energy in the number 1 secret realm was still considered rich, but compared to the many dragon veins that Yishuan had buried, it was simply rubbish. Moreover, the spiritual energy was completely locked inside by Yishuan's 9 Serenities Emperor formation. Not a single trace of it would leak out. All of them were used by him. Only now did he understand why there were so many sayings on the path of cultivation, such as earth, companion, dharma, and wealth. If he had cultivated in such an environment from the beginning, it would not have taken long for his cultivation to catch up with his current self. But of course, a flower raised in a greenhouse could not be compared to a person who had experienced many battles. No wonder those geniuses' cultivation speed was faster than the other. In just a few years, they could complete the journey that ordinary people could not complete in decades or even centuries. It was completely using resources to exchange for time. This was not something that ordinary big families could do. Even in the Marquis clan, there were only a few who could enjoy such treatment. Hence, there were only a few top geniuses. Time passed slowly. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye in the outside world while Yishuan was constantly cultivating. Yishuan had been constantly concentrating on his cultivation, and hadn't stopped for even a moment. However, too many things had happened in the outside world. The demon race was still besieging the royal court. As the battle progressed, the demon race increasingly harassed the human territory of the ancient Barons continent. Compared to other races, the human race was not all soldiers. Facing the demon race or the demon-worshipping religion's disciples, the mortals had no resistance at all and would be killed quickly. Moreover, these mortals were the foundation of the entire human race. Needless to say, the demon race grasped this point very accurately. They stabbed into the human race's Achilles heel in an instant. This also forced the human race to put more of their strength into eliminating the devil race in various places. The storm that Yishuan had created 10 years ago had also been completely submerged in this tense situation. After Yishuan had won the first place in one fell swoop, he didn't continue to become famous as many people had imagined. On the contrary, he lived a reclusive life. As for the others, they continued to grow during this period of time. Slowly, many people gradually forgot, or temporarily forgot about Yishuan's existence. And on this day Yishuan, who had been in the middle of the dragon veins, finally opened his eyes. In front of him, the Kunping egg in the center of the 9 dragon veins finally moved. Cracks appeared on the surface of the Kunping egg, and a childish cry resounded through the number 1 secret realm. Chapter 1628. Crack! Crack! Kunping's egg cracked bit by bit, and then a bird pecked the eggshell bit by bit. It immediately revealed a cheerful smile when it saw Yishuan. Although it was just a bird, Kunping's expression was quite human-like. In fact, excluding Kunping's size, its IQ was much higher than ordinary people. Yishuan had been using dragon veins to help it hatch in the past 10 years. In addition to the great beast taming technique, Kunpeng treated Yishiwen like a child, making it dependent on Yishiwen. Kunpeng's aura continued to expand, and the surrounding laws condensed around its body. It was a transcendent realm powerhouse the moment it was born, radiating its aura. Although Kunpeng was a transcendent realm powerhouse at birth and showed extraordinary talent, Yishiwen was not too happy. 9 dragon veins, let alone 9, even one was enough to create a heaven-end realm master. In the end, after Kunpeng swallowed all of them, it only reached transcendent realm. He really wanted to say that this guy was really a wastrel. But thinking about himself, he was not much better, so he could only forget about it. Compared to Kunpeng, who was a bottomless black hole, Yishiwen was not much better. Fortunately, after hatching, Kunpeng did not need to be fed like this. Otherwise, Yishiwen would go bankrupt first. After 10 years of incubation, Kunpeng finally hatched, but the 9 dragon veins were also completely absorbed by it. Yishiwen was only left with 8 dragon veins. But to some extent, Yishiwen was still very rich. In 10 years, he had completely stepped into the 6th level of Celestial Realm Peak. In fact, he had already stepped into the 6th level of Celestial Realm Peak a few years ago, but he did not choose to break through immediately. With his accumulation, stepping into the 7th level of Celestial Realm was more than enough. But his current combat power was already comparable to the 9th level of Celestial Realm. If he broke through normally, even if he stepped into the 7th level of Celestial Realm, it would only increase his current combat power a little, and it would not be comparable to the Heaven-End Realm Master. The difference between the Heaven Realm and the Heaven Realm was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even if his battle prowess could completely defeat an ordinary 9th heaven of the Heaven Realm, it was still impossible for him to be a match for an expert of the Heaven Realm. With his current situation, if he wanted to go up against experts of the Celestial Realm in a short period of time, he would either have to do something when he stepped into the 7th heaven of the Celestial Realm, or he would have to rise all the way to the 9th heaven of the Celestial Realm before breaking through. However, from the looks of it, it would take a long time to reach the 9th sky of the Celestial Realm, not to mention stepping into the Celestial Realm. Even Yiqiong and the others said that it would take a long time to reach the Celestial Realm. Therefore, Yishiwen decided to build a solid foundation first. When the time came, his combat strength would directly break into the Celestial Realm. For 10 whole years, he had been cultivating in the dragon veins. Moreover, he had been cultivating in 5 dragon veins. One could imagine how much he had accumulated. It was because of this accumulation that he had the ambition to break into the 7th level of the Celestial Realm in one go, bringing his combat power into the Celestial Realm in one go, turning all the foundation and accumulation into combat power. In these 10 years, although Yishiwen had not gone out, he was not completely ignorant of the outside world. During this period, Yi Qianqian had also come in for training for a long time, and came in a few times. The accumulation that Yishiwen needed to break through was too deep. Even many geniuses who wanted to reach the Celestial Realm might not need such a deep accumulation. In these few years, because of the invasion of the demon race, all the major forces began to speed up the pace of cultivating the younger generation. After all, in this chaotic world, if resources and whatnot could not be converted into combat power, then everything would be wasted. Some treasures that they were reluctant to use were used on these geniuses without hesitation at this time, to maximize the potential of this generation of young experts and increase their combat power. Originally, Yiqiong said that with his situation at that time, it would be very good if he could reach the Celestial Realm within 50 years. In reality, he did not need that much time. A year ago, Yiqiong had already reached the Celestial Realm and passed the Celestial Realm tribulation. In the Yi clan, the first to reach the Celestial Realm was no one else but Yi Shukong. As the bloodline of the Son of God, it could even be said that he was blessed by nature in cultivation. There were no obstacles to speak of. As long as he accumulated enough, he would naturally step into the next realm. This point was not so obvious before, but when he encountered the huge obstacle of the Celestial Realm, his advantage was completely displayed. Originally, among the Yi clan, he was the most promising person, even though Yi Shiwen had obtained helpers. This was because the older generation knew very well how difficult it was to break through the celestial realm, and the further one went, the harder it would be to break through. The advantage of the Son of God became more obvious the further one went. While the others gradually slowed down because of the increasingly powerful barrier, only the Son of God could break through without any obstacles. Sure enough, this point was the best proof. The first to reach the celestial realm was Yi Shukong. In the second year of Yi Shiwen's closed-door training, with the countless resources of the Yi clan, he directly broke through the celestial realm. In an instant, his reputation rose, directly overshadowing Yi Shiwen, who had obtained the first place. Not to mention the Yi clan, even the four giants, Fa Wushuang and the others could not progress as fast as him. It was not until the third year after Yi Shukong entered the celestial realm that the four giants, Fa Wushuang and the others successively entered the celestial realm. Although this progress could be said to be shocking, and some people had already regarded this generation as the golden generation, which was rare in the history of the human race, compared to Yi Shukong's speed, they were still inferior. This situation of geniuses erupting like a geyser also caused many people to feel uneasy. Because history had proven that whenever there was a situation where geniuses erupted like a geyser, a golden era often meant that a great calamity was about to descend. Especially now that there was a pincer attack from both the inside and outside of the human race, this made this statement even more recognized. And then, the news that came from the other races cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. The other groups were also like the human race, geniuses erupting like a geyser. There were young geniuses that successively crossed the threshold of the celestial realm, and became influential figures of the ancient barons. This made many people puzzled. What was going on in this world? In the past few decades, there might not be a single person who could enter the celestial realm. Once one was born, there would be a big celebration and announcement to the world. Now, there was a continuous flow of geniuses, like cabbages on the roadside. And it was not only the younger generation, even many of the older generation had broken through their original realms. Many people were happy, but also worried. In a sense, this was not a good sign. Especially when this affected all the major races of the ancient barons, it was even more obvious that the great calamity that was about to descend this time would be extraordinary. After Yi Shukong, Yi Qiong and Yi Quan had also broken through in the past 2 years, almost stepping into the celestial realm one after another. Originally, Yi Quan had been far ahead of Yi Qiong, but now Yi Qiong had caught up. Both of them became the Yi family after Yi Shukong, and 2 more young geniuses had stepped into the celestial realm. Apart from them, Yi Luan, Yi Xinghe, and the others were also just a step away from the celestial realm. However, Yi Shiwen knew that the one who really stepped into the celestial realm after Yi Shukong was not the others, but Yi Qianqian. In fact, 2 years after Yi Shukong stepped into the celestial realm, Yi Qianqian had already stepped into the celestial realm. After Yi Qianqian stepped into the celestial realm, she cultivated in Yi Shiwen's dragon vein for a period of time. After consolidating her realm, she quietly left. Yi Shiwen did not ask in detail, but he roughly knew something. It seemed that some of Yi Qianqian's memories were awakened, and in order to further her cultivation, he did not know which space she went to. This made Yi Shiwen extremely shocked. Originally, he thought that the rumor that Yi Qianqian was the reincarnation of an ancient goddess was mostly nonsense. Previously, Yi Qianqian also said that she was not clear about it, but who knew that after breaking through to the celestial realm, she actually awakened a part of her memories. This matter was actually not groundless, but had indeed happened. However, other than Yi Qianqian, only Yi Shiwen knew about this matter. Although there were many speculations outside, speculations were just speculations. In fact, there were many people who had such rumors, and many people had rumors of the reincarnation of a deity. There were all kinds of rumors, but rumors were just rumors, and no one had really verified them. However, Yi Qianqian was the only thing that Yi Shiwen could be sure of. Although he did not know how she did it, there was no doubt that there must be a secret behind it. Yi Qianqian did not say it, and Yishuan did not ask too much. There was no need at all. Other than these few geniuses who had already stepped into the celestial realm, there were many other geniuses who had also sprung up in these few years. Although they could not compare to these experts who had already stepped into the celestial realm, they were much stronger than 10 years ago. It could be said that they had increased by several levels in an instant. In these 10 years, Yishuan had lived in seclusion, and gradually, he was forgotten by them. In these 10 years, there were too many people who had shaken the world, and he was no longer in the limelight. However, he did not care about this at all. He just advanced step by step according to his plan, and after 10 years of accumulation and preparation, he was finally going to try to break through to the 7th level of the celestial realm. Chapter 1629. In front of him, the little Kunpeng began to devour the eggshell. With every bite, its aura rose by a notch. It didn't take long for it to ascend to the transcendent realm's 2nd level. Yishuan was speechless when he saw this. Although Kunpeng was talented, but this kind of method of improvement made him completely speechless. This was a prodigal thing. Even he was a little jealous of this little Kunpeng. It could advance its realm just by eating. Many people would be envious if this was spread out. Not only was it a waste of countless resources, but it was also necessary for ordinary people to have sufficient realm comprehension if they wanted to advance. Otherwise, it was impossible to advance at all. However, this Kunpeng's advancement was as simple as eating and drinking. It advanced on the spot. In the past 10 years, Yishuan had also looked up a lot of information about Kunpeng. He knew that Kunpeng, like other ominous beasts, inherited knowledge through their bloodline. They were born with the understanding of martial arts from their ancestors. So, before they reached a certain realm, they didn't even need to comprehend. Just by devouring treasures, their cultivation could skyrocket without any sequelae. Yishuan really envied his talent. This kind of innate advantage was not something that Yishuan could be envious of. For example, Yishukong was the son of God. There were almost no obstacles in his cultivation. This was also where Yishuan could not compare with him. After a while, Kunpeng had completely devoured his eggshell. Its cultivation directly soared to the transcendent realm 5th level peak, and it was the kind of existence that could easily defeat those in the same realm. Yishuan needed a deep accumulation to achieve this, but Kunpeng could do it easily. After devouring the eggshell, Kunpeng happily flew around Yishuan. However, Yishuan could not care about Kunpeng at this time. He was completely immersed in cultivation. He had already stepped into the peak of the 6th celestial realm. He could have stepped into the 7th celestial realm long ago, but he needed to accumulate a deeper foundation. Because of this, the realm barrier that could have been easily broken through became even more difficult to overcome. Around his body, the 5 dragon veins turned into 5 huge dragon shadows, constantly spewing Lingqi into his body. Countless powers were constantly emerging from his body. A huge ancient tree was constantly sprinkling 7-colored divine light, and was constantly enveloping Yishuan. Yishuan was always in a state of clarity and tranquility. The page of the ancient god's scripture also began to emit the power of the gods. It was as if a god was reciting the scripture, holy and solemn. There were also the words, martial, fighting, and seal, all operating at once. In order to break through into the 7th heavenly layer of celestial being realm, Yishuan had already stopped at nothing. It was he who made the barrier of the 6th heavenly layer of celestial being realm incomparably deep. If he was unable to break through, it would become a situation of spinning a cocoon around himself. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. One had to pay a certain price for whatever kind of power one wanted to obtain. Bit by bit, all of them began to operate. The 5 dragon veins formed a 5-chi imperial formation around his body, condensing countless Lingqi into a long river and instilling it into his body. The powerful power made the entire number 1 secret realm tremble. Time seemed to have stopped. The entire number 1 secret realm was silent. In addition to Yishuan's closed-door training, Yulian was also in closed-door training to digest the power of this dragon vein. Tianyuan Mirror was also madly absorbing the power of that dragon vein under the influence of Yi Mo's subconscious. Kunping was very bored and began to circle around Yishiwen, but it soon found that it was not interesting at all, and began to cry continuously. Although he was still young, he already had the awe-inspiring aura of a future overlord of the sky and the ocean. Around him, countless laws of wind and water condensed, and with a casual opening of his mouth, countless laws of wind turned into blades of air that filled the sky and flew out. This was its innate magical power, and it almost didn't need anyone to teach it. It was completely self-taught. Unlike ordinary people who first learn martial arts moves, Kunping was born to fight with the law. Compared with ordinary people, its starting point was really much higher. If Yishiwen had not forcibly intercepted it, according to its normal development, it was afraid that it would be born as a celestial realm fierce beast, absolutely able to look down on many fierce beasts, and ranked as one of the top 10 fierce beasts of the ancient times. Soon, this Kunping was tired of playing. Although it was born with wisdom and was subdued by Yishiwen, it was still a child after all. It was unusually playful, and very soon, it got tired of playing and began to rush out of the number 1 secret realm. Although Yishiwen had reset up a defensive formation in the number 1 secret realm, it was only for outsiders, so this Kunping easily passed through the formation and flew to the outside world. Just like other newborns, it was full of curiosity about this world. His speed was extremely fast, and he, who possessed the law of wind, could be said to be the representative of the law of wind. Whoosh! 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 Its figure began to flicker continuously in the number 1 secret realm. In the number 1 secret realm, although there were many law manifestation realm and even half-step celestial realm experts, no one could see through the flying figure of Kunping. Not even their spirit could capture it. It was like a spirit in the wind. Although it could not be as domineering as an adult Kunping, there was no doubt that it was definitely counted as an expert. At this moment, a group of people came in from the void. The person in the lead was dressed in a white robe, with an arrogant look on his face. He directly stepped on the air and entered the Yi clan's most mysterious number 1 secret realm. Behind him, many people followed behind him. There were 2 people in the lead. One was a young man in a blue robe, standing with his hands behind his back. At a young age, he was like a peerless overlord. On the other side of him was actually the top expert among the younger generation of Yi clan, Yi Kuang. Behind Yi Kuang, there were also many experts from Yi clan. Beside the young man in the blue robe, there were also many experts, but they were not experts from Yi clan. This is the number 1 secret realm that has been rumored for a long time in your Yi clan? I don't think it's that great, the young man in the blue robe said arrogantly. His strength was so strong that with just a glance, he could see the entire human secret realm. These are the new talents of our Yi clan. The real experts are still in the Earth's secret realm and the human secret realm. Yi Kuang's expression changed slightly, then he gritted his teeth and said. Compared to 10 years ago, Yi Kuang, who had stepped into the celestial realm, already had the demeanor of a peerless overlord. He was completely different from before. Now, he could be considered to have completely grown up. Even his master Yijin Mo had the intention to let him take over the position of the demon-suppressing city lord. Yijin Mo had not mentioned this before because he hoped that Yi Kuang could go further and compete for the position of the clan leader. With his talent and cultivation that was far ahead of everyone, there was still hope. But who knew that later, he would be captured by Yishiwen, causing his reputation to plummet. After that, Yishikun was far ahead of everyone else, directly stepping into the celestial realm in one go. Instead, he was one step faster than Yi Kuang, whose cultivation was originally stronger than his. That wasn't all. Yi Qiong, who had always been behind him, had actually stepped into the heaven realm just like him. Whether it was Yi Shukong or Yi Qiong, they were all proud disciples of the clan leader. No matter which one of them, they had the right to inherit the position. If Yi Kuang could firmly suppress everyone else, then it would be fine. But now, Yi Kuang did not have an overwhelming advantage. This made it even more difficult for him to inherit the position of the clan leader. Not to mention Yi Shukong, just Yi Qiong alone was not inferior to Yi Kuang. The possibility of Yi Kuang inheriting the position had become uncertain. Even if he had stepped into the celestial realm and become an overlord, the situation was not as good as before. In the Yi clan, Yi Zhenmo definitely did not have as many connections as the clan leader. Under the same choice, everyone would still choose Yi Qiong, who had the same ambition, over Yi Kuang, who came from the demon-suppressing city. Yi Zhenmo had finally become indifferent to all of this in the past few years. He had plans to let Yi Kuang take over the position of the demon-suppressing city lord. He also planned to enter a state of closed-door cultivation. Under the background of the demon race invasion, it could be said that even the overlord of the celestial realm had to be careful. If they were not careful, they would fall. Is that so? What is in the earth's secret realm and the heaven's secret realm? The youth in the azure blue robes smiled in contempt. I heard that the Yi clan has a few experts. Why haven't I seen them, especially that god's child who claims to have the bloodline of the gods? Didn't you say that he is comparable to the 5 giants of your human race? If it is possible, I hope to have a spar with him. Junior brother Yi Shukong is currently in a distant space and can't return for the time being. In the future you will definitely have a chance to fight. Yi Kuang's expression changed as he said. When had he ever been looked down upon like this? Even the 5 giants of this generation of the human race didn't dare to look down on him like this. He can't return for the time being, or is he afraid of us? When he heard that we were coming, he ran away in fear. The youth in the azure blue robe grinned and said. The corner of his mouth had a hint of disdain and coldness. His originally handsome smile looked a little ferocious at this moment. Yi Kuang was so angry that his face turned red. He scolded. Beishan Shui, don't go too far. Chapter 1630. Too much? How am I too much? The blue-robed young man grinned and said, I am indeed very interested in your god's child. For so many years, I have never seen a god. I have always heard that one of our ancestors had killed a god. Although I dare not compare myself to our ancestor, I am more than capable of killing a god's child. As soon as he said this, not only Yi Kuang, but even the Yi clan's experts behind Yi Kuang suddenly became furious. Among them, there were many old acquaintances of Yi Shiwen, including Yi Shui and a few others. Back then, they were all competing with Yi Shiwen in the same generation. Now, so many years had passed. Although they were not as dazzling as Yi Shiwen and others, they were also one of the new stars that Yi clan had cultivated with great effort. In these years, they had also crossed the 7th level of Celestial Being Realm, and became a big shot. In recent years, the laws of heaven and earth seemed to have changed. Originally, many people could not enter the 7th level of Celestial Realm. At this time, many people suddenly broke through to the 7th level of Celestial Realm. Many people of the older generation and the younger generation took advantage of this opportunity to break through to the 7th level of Celestial Realm. What, you are still not convinced? Beishan Shui sneered and said, If you want to talk about the most outstanding bloodline in this world, there is probably no one more superior than Brother Feng. Even the so-called gods are no exception. At this time, he looked at the white-robed young man. The white-robed young man just smiled slightly, a bit arrogant, but did not say much. It seemed that he disdained this kind of comparison. You're all too stubborn. Bloodlines and whatnot are only innate conditions. If you don't work hard later on, whatever bloodlines you have will all be wasted. The decline of the desolate antiquity over these years is not unrelated to this. The white-robed Brother Feng said indifferently. When the Yi clan heard this, not only did they not agree with this seemingly reasonable statement, on the contrary, they were somewhat angry. This was a blatant slap in the Yi clan's face. Their Yi clan did not spread the word that Yi Shukong had the bloodline of gods and was the god's child. Just this kind of god's bloodline alone was a symbol of nobility. If he directly came here, bloodline was nothing. If he did not work hard, he would be worse than an ordinary person. At this time, they couldn't help but curse the white-robed young man in their hearts. If you didn't have a good background, who knows where you'd be playing in the mud right now? Doesn't it seem like your waist is hurting when you say this? However, they didn't dare to say it out loud. Even with their pride as the top geniuses of the Yi clan, they didn't dare to say it out loud because the identity of the white-robed young man before them was too shocking. It was so shocking that even Yi Kuang, the new hegemon of the Yi clan, and Beishan Shui, the new peerless hegemon of the Beishan clan, could only obediently accompany them. Let's go. There's nothing interesting here. Let's go directly to the Heaven's secret realm and have a look. After seeing this place, I have a rough idea, the white-robed young man said. That's it then. I hope Brother Feng can tell us more about the current situation of the ancient wilderness. In fact, we are the front line against the demon race. If we fall, I'm afraid, Yi Kuang said. Are you threatening me? Brother Feng glanced at Yi Kuang coldly and said. Of course not. Yi Kuang smiled faintly. He also had his own pride. Being looked down upon like this, he was already full of anger. If it wasn't for the identity of the person in front of him, and if it was Beishan Shui, he would have already beaten him up. Then don't say any more. I know what I should say, Brother Feng said. Inadvertently, Brother Feng glanced at Yi Kuang and said, I heard that in your Yi clan, there is a person named Yi Shiwen. Hearing Yi Shiwen's name, the complexion of Yi Kuang and the others slightly changed. 10 years had passed. For many people, perhaps many Yi family members had gradually forgotten the shock and glory that Yi Shiwen had created in the past. He was the top of the top 100 list, and the champion of the imperial court competition. In this era where geniuses were emerging in large numbers, he had been quickly forgotten. Many people might be able to recall Yi Shiwen's name from their dusty memories, but it was just a recollection. They didn't feel much. At this time, when his peers had all stepped into the 7th level of the Sky Realm, and his former opponents and defeated opponents had all stepped into the Sky Realm, he had been living in seclusion and hadn't been heard of for a long time. Soon, no one paid attention to him. Although he had won the championship of the Imperial Court hegemony, many people knew that in the end, Yi Shiwen had relied on the help of a Sky Realm master to defeat the current 5 tycoons of the Imperial Court. It was not a reflection of his strength. If they really fought, Yi Shiwen might not be a match for the 5 tycoons. Moreover, many people knew that 10 years ago, Yi Shiwen was merely at the 6th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm. Even if his battle prowess could blow up the experts of the 9th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm, it couldn't hide the fact that he was merely a warrior of the 6th heavenly layer of Celestial Being Realm. Now, only 10 years had passed. If he wanted to go from the 6th level of the Sky Realm to the 9th level of the Sky Realm, or even to the Sky Realm, that was simply impossible. The lack of cultivation level used to be his advantage, allowing him to quickly catch up to others. But now, it had become his fatal disadvantage, making him unable to catch up to others. In addition, there hadn't been any news of him in the past 10 years, which made many people think that he had fallen. Even if he could one day step into the Sky Realm, it would be many years later. At least for the time being, he had been forgotten by everyone. But to the family members present now, it was different. Most people had only heard of Yi Shiwen's legends and hadn't seen Yi Shiwen's true strength. But they had truly experienced the era when Yi Shiwen dominated. Among them, some were Yi Shiwen's friends, some were Yi Shiwen's enemies, and some were defeated by Yi Shiwen. To them, Yi Shiwen's name had a completely different weight and status. Even if there hadn't been any news of him in the past 10 years, no one dared to underestimate him. If the 17 dragon veins were fully utilized, to what extent could Yi Shiwen improve? It was simply unimaginable. Especially Yi Kuang. The matter of being captured by Yi Shiwen 10 years ago had become a shame that he couldn't wash away in this life. Even if he stepped into the Sky Realm, it was still the same. From his master Yi Jinmo, Yi Kuang knew that Yi Shiwen had a Sky Realm spirit guarding him at all times. Even his master might not be her opponent, so he gave up on the idea of finding Yi Shiwen after stepping into the Sky Realm. But now that Brother Feng mentioned Yi Shiwen, it still made his heart skip a beat. There is indeed such a person. I don't know how Brother Feng knew. Yi Kuang paused and replied. Brother Feng sneered, looking slightly amused, then said, How did you know? This Yi Shiwen, I should say, is also very famous in your Yi family. He is indeed a bit famous, Yi Kuang said. Not just a bit famous. Back then he was the champion of your human race's royal court competition, and I also heard that Yi Kuang, you were captured by him in one fell swoop. The four of you together were actually no match for him. At this time, Bei Shan Shui said in a strange tone. It caused the bunch of experts behind him to laugh out loud. If it was under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have the guts to mock a celestial realm overlord. That would be no different from asking to die. But at this time, following behind Bei Shan Shui, they were unscrupulous. Moreover, there was Brother Feng here, so what did they have to be afraid of? Yi Kuang's face turned green and then white. That matter was his greatest humiliation, and not only did Bei Shan Shui mention it again, but on the contrary, in such a strange tone, it was simply a slap in his face. Oh, I didn't expect him to have some ability. This is a little surprising, Brother Feng said with a cold smile. Yi Kuang looked at this Brother Feng strangely. Could it be that this Brother Feng actually knew Yi Shiwen, and from his tone, it seemed that he didn't get along with Yi Shiwen. If it was in the past, he might have the thought of provoking this Brother Feng to get rid of Yi Shiwen. But now that he no longer wanted to fight for the position of the family head, he no longer had the thought of getting rid of dissidents. Yi Shiwen was now almost like a useless person, and had not stepped into the Sky Realm, so it was impossible for him to be his opponent. Even if he got rid of him, there was still Yi Qiong and Yi Shukong, so it was not his turn at all. Moreover, this matter concerned the Yi family's face, so his attitude was naturally different. I don't know where he is now. Don't tell me that he is also in a distant space, or else I will fall out with you, Brother Feng said coldly, and there was a wild aura in his tone. Of course not, it's just that. Yi Kuang looked at this Brother Feng with an ugly expression. Did this Brother Feng want to turn the tables? Bring me there, I want to see this Yi Shiwen now. Who is he? Brother Feng said indifferently. I can tell you the truth, this time I came to see this Yi Shiwen, otherwise, why would I be interested in visiting your Yi family? This Brother Feng's words were full of strong confidence. Not to mention the Yi family, he didn't even care about the human race, so at this time, he naturally didn't speak politely. The people behind Yi Kuang were infuriated. This was too much. To show their sincerity, the Yi clan had even opened the first secret realm to this Brother Feng. How dare he look down on the Yi clan like this? This was intolerable. The situation instantly froze. Suddenly, a figure flashed past them, and with their cultivations, they practically sensed it at the first possible moment. Chapter 1631. Everyone's divine sense immediately followed, and they instantly caught sight of this little fairy in the wind. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. Kuan Peng! It's actually a Kuan Peng! Although the people present were all of the younger generation, how many of them could cultivate to this level by completely cultivating in seclusion? Every one of them was knowledgeable, and had a strong memory. Even though they hadn't seen the true form of the Kuan Peng, they had all seen pictures of it. So, the impression they had of it was too deep. So, almost immediately, they came to the conclusion of this Kuan Peng. However, everyone immediately became even more puzzled. How could it be Kuan Peng? Even in ancient times, Kuan Peng was very rare. Usually, there were only one or two of them in the world. At this time, they could actually see Kuan Peng here. In particular, this was a young Kuan Peng, a young Kuan Peng that had not grown up at all. This made many people completely confused, especially the Yi family. They were very familiar with the human secret realm. Although there were many planets in the human secret realm, and many ancient fierce beasts existed in the space, it was impossible to have a fierce beast like Kuan Peng. This level of fierce beast could even alarm the Yi family head. If such a Kunping appeared, the entire Yi family would be shaken. Many people were a little puzzled. According to the information they had read before, Kunping was born with celestial realm cultivation. This young Kunping was only the size of a fist, but its cultivation was only at transcendent realm 5th level. Admittedly, compared to ordinary creatures, having transcendent realm 5th level cultivation at birth was already tyrannical and heaven-defying. However, this was the Kunping, a primordial fierce beast. It was naturally incomparable to ordinary fierce beasts. After the old Kunping grew old and only had an egg left, he could still defeat the world's top expert like Jiaoying Demon King. Needless to say, Kunping was tyrannical. "What's going on?" Brother Feng looked at Yi Kuang and asked. Yi Kuang was also inexplicably shocked. He had no idea why a Kunping would appear in the human character secret realm. The way Brother Feng looked at Yi Kuang did not seem to be fake. Thinking about it, if this was the Yi family's Kunping, then why would he see it at this time? It must have been hidden until it was fully grown and could be a threat to the whole world. An adult Kunping was in existence that exceeded heaven realm. Just the Kunping alone exceeded everyone's imagination. "I don't care what this has to do with your Yi clan. However, the Rock clan and the Yi clan are quite closely related. They both belong to the bloodline of birds. Naturally, I can't watch the descendants of the Rock clan wander outside." Brother Feng's eyes lit up as he spoke. The matter of looking for Yi Shiwen was temporarily put to the back of his mind. It was more important to capture this Kunping first. Yi Kuang almost cursed. He originally wanted to capture the Kunping and keep it for himself. Who knew that Brother Feng would want to take the Kunping away the moment he opened his mouth? F***ck, the Kunping also belongs to the bloodline of birds. The monster Kunping is a fierce beast overlord in the deep sea. It only becomes a ping after transforming into a bird. Why don't you say it belongs to the bloodline of beasts in the sea? You can be shameless, but don't be so shameless. Originally, this Kunping should belong to the Yi clan and the Yi clan's #1 secret realm. If at this time, he said that he wanted Beishan Shui, then sorry. In the Yi clan's territory, it was not Beishan Shui's turn to speak nonsense. However, this person had to be this Brother Feng. His identity was shocking. Even Yi Kuang was very afraid of his identity. Even he did not want to offend such a person. However, the temptation of a Kunping was needless to say. If he let go of a Kunping, he would regret it for the rest of his life, even though he didn't know how this Kunping came about. Just as he was still hesitating, Brother Feng had already made his move. He grabbed out a huge hand from the void. It was extremely fast. In the void, a series of afterimages were formed, and it directly grabbed towards the young Kunping. Just as Brother Feng was about to grab the young Kunping seemed to have realized the danger. In an instant, it increased its flying speed and escaped from Brother Feng's huge hand. The exchange of blows between the two sides was so quick that it was as fast as a hair's breadth. Everyone finally reacted and couldn't help but exclaim. This Kunping was indeed a legendary ancient ferocious creature. In the legends, the Kunping could fly up 90,000 miles. Although this young Kunping couldn't reach such a level, with his transcendent realm cultivation, he was able to escape the pursuit of a heaven and realm expert. This was enough to show his terrifying talent. In terms of the grasp of the wind laws, he was much stronger than many heaven and realm experts. They were born with the bloodline inheritance. Generations of Kunping's understanding of the wind laws were passed down, allowing them to possess talents that ordinary people couldn't imagine. If this Kunping was born in the heaven end realm, even a heaven end realm expert wouldn't be able to catch a single hair of it. This is a little interesting. Brother Feng wasn't annoyed. He only chuckled. To him, this Kunping was already in his bag. There was no need to be nervous. Immediately after, he made his move again. His hand grabbed towards the Kunping. This time, the Kunping's movements were much faster than before. It felt a strong sense of danger. The pressure from a heaven and realm expert made it feel like it was suffocating. If it wasn't a natural variant, A normal transcendent realm creature wouldn't even be able to raise its head in front of a heaven-end realm overlord. It could only kneel on the ground and accept its death. This was the complete suppression of a higher-level creature against a lower-level creature. Boom! Brother Feng's hand directly destroyed a secret realm, but still allowed the Kunping to escape. Yi Kuang's expression instantly changed. This Brother Feng was truly unscrupulous. However, he couldn't ignore it. This was within the Yi family. Fortunately, no one was inside Liamin. If there was someone inside, wouldn't he be dead? Brother Feng, have mercy! He quickly said. Stop talking nonsense. Don't block me. Otherwise I'll kill you as well, said Brother Feng coldly as he glanced at Yi Kuang. He didn't put Yi Kuang in his eyes at all. At this moment, there was only the young Kunping in his eyes. Even with his identity, he would go crazy against the Kunping. It was impossible for him to ignore the existence of the Kunping. His background was indeed noble, but compared to the Kunping, one of the 10 ancient ferocious beasts, he paled in comparison. Swish! His hand grabbed out again, and another secret realm was destroyed on the spot. Brother Feng, if you really want to be stubborn, then don't blame me for being impolite. Although our Yi family's people aren't as noble as you, we won't allow you to kill as you wish, said Yi Kuang coldly. That's right. Do you want to start a massacre in our Yi family? If that's the case, our Yi family doesn't welcome you. I've had enough of your kindness. Do you still think that it's the distant past? Do you still want to act like a tyrant? Following Yi Kuang's declaration, many of the young experts of the Yi clan also voiced their support for Yi Kuang. They had had enough of this Brother Feng. If it wasn't for the fact that they weren't a match for him, and if it wasn't for the fact that his status was astonishing, they wouldn't have tolerated him until now. How dare you! Does your Yi family want to rebel? Bei Shan Shui hurriedly shouted. I don't think your human clan has any sincerity in this matter. It's not worth our help. Bei Shan Shui, don't try to sow discord. If today's matter fails, don't even think about leaving our Yi family. Yi Kuang gritted his teeth and looked at Bei Shan Shui. His eyes were bloodshot, and he seemed to have gone mad. Bei Shan Shui suddenly stopped. Only then did he remember that this was the Yi family's territory. If these guys really went crazy, then no one would be able to stop them. All right, I won't attack these secret realms anymore. But don't stop me, otherwise I won't be polite. Brother Feng instantly reacted and said. He was not afraid of Yi Kuang, but he was afraid that Yi Kuang would stop him and waste time, causing him to lose this great rock. As for the Yi family daring to offend him, he could settle the score at any time in the future. The most important thing was to capture the great rock first. Before that, it was okay to compromise a little. After saying that, he had already moved. His figure directly flew out, chasing in the direction of the young great rock. For this young great rock, he was determined to get it. And when Yi Kuang saw the direction in which he and the young great rock flew, his face suddenly changed because he was too familiar with that direction. It was the direction of the human number 1 secret realm. In the past, he was also one of the masters of this secret realm. Now, that master was none other than Yi Shiwen. Although Yi Shiwen had entered the celestial realm, he still did not move out of the human number 1 secret realm. It was somewhat against the rules, but this was not a big deal, because there was no clear rule that forced them to leave. Generally, they chose to leave by themselves. In addition, once Yi Shiwen returned to the human number 1 secret realm, he often cultivated in seclusion and did not care about anything else. Gradually, everyone accepted the fact that Yi Shiwen was in the human number 1 secret realm. Anyway, this was his own business. If he did not go to the heaven number 1 secret realm with better conditions, then there was nothing he could do. Originally, this Brother Feng was looking for Yi Shiwen. Now, the direction in which they were chasing was the direction where Yi Shiwen was. After his face changed several times, he gritted his teeth and directly chased after them. Not only Yi Kuang, but the other masters of the Yi family also saw the direction in which they were chasing. They also reacted and chased after them. Chapter 1632. Even Beishan Shui and the experts behind him followed. They had followed Brother Feng here to begin with, so it was only natural for them to follow him at this time. Young Kunpeng's speed was extremely fast. His entire body seemed to have completely integrated with the wind attribute laws, turning into the wind attribute laws. Even so, he still couldn't catch up with Brother Feng's speed. He was still getting closer and closer. After all, his cultivation was still too low. If he had celestial realm cultivation, even Brother Feng wouldn't be able to catch up with him. Young Kunpeng kept howling, as if he was saying that Brother Feng was shameless, and that he was bullying the young. But at this time, Brother Feng couldn't care less about what young Kunpeng was thinking. He kept reaching out with his hands, trying to catch young Kunpeng. However, he couldn't bear to kill the young Kunpeng, which was why the young Kunpeng kept escaping. However, he wasn't in a hurry. As long as the young Kunpeng was still in Mystery Realm number 1, the young Kunpeng wouldn't be able to escape his pursuit. Both sides were in the void, one chasing and the other escaping. In a flash, they had reached the outside of Mystery Realm number 1. Young Kunpeng rushed in directly. "Humph, let's see where you can run to," Brother Feng sneered. If young Kunpeng kept escaping, he might not be able to do anything to young Kunpeng in a short time. But young Kunpeng had escaped into the Mystery Realm. It was as if he was trapped in a corner. It wasn't that easy to escape. He was about to make a move, but Yi Quan had already caught up and shouted, "Brother Feng, please show mercy. You can't touch this Mystery Realm." "Why?" Brother Feng squinted and said. Because young Kunpeng had escaped into the Mystery Realm, he wasn't in a hurry to make a move. Because this Mystery Realm is special. I hope Brother Feng will show mercy." Yi Quan stammered for a long time. He couldn't say that the Yi Shiwen you were looking for was inside. Everyone had forgotten about Yi Shiwen's glory during this period of time, but he still remembered it. He had also been paying attention to the news of Yi Shiwen. Although there had been no news of Yi Shiwen for 10 years, he knew that Yi Shiwen should still be inside. If Brother Feng took action, he was afraid that it would also affect Yi Shiwen inside. He naturally didn't have a good impression of Yi Shiwen. In fact, he hated him to the bone. He wouldn't hesitate to kill him if he had the opportunity. However, the one who wanted to kill him was Brother Feng. How could he watch Brother Feng kill him and not do anything? Otherwise, he wouldn't be Yi Quan. "I thought it was something big. It's just a secret realm. When I catch the young Kunpeng, I'll compensate you with 10. What's wrong with that?" Brother Feng didn't care at all. It was just a mystic realm of this level. Even 100 or 1,000 of them couldn't be compared to the Kunpeng. As long as he could catch the young Kunpeng, what was a mere mystic realm worth mentioning? "No, Brother Feng, listen to me, this secret realm is not ordinary. I hope you can show mercy," Yi Quan said. "Yi Quan, you have blocked Brother Feng's actions time and time again. Are you trying to go against Brother Feng?" At this time, Beishan Shui had also arrived and tried to sow discord. "Beishan Shui, don't try to sow discord. If it was any other mystic realm, I'm afraid I can't touch this mystic realm." Yi Quan gritted his teeth and said. The most important thing was that he knew that Yi Shiwen had a celestial realm expert by his side. If he wanted to touch Yi Shiwen, it was impossible. Good. I didn't care at first, but now I want to see what's inside. There's actually something I can't touch, Brother Feng said with an ugly expression. Obviously, he was angered by Yi Quan's words and said it as if he was angry. As he said that, his big hand directly grabbed towards the mystic realm. If that happened, the young Kunpeng would have no way to escape and would eventually fall into his hands. At this time, Yi Quan heaved a sigh of relief and sneered at Brother Feng. This person had humiliated him time and time again. He didn't put him in his eyes at all. Naturally, he knew Yi Shiwen's background. Even his master didn't dare to easily find trouble with him, let alone this Brother Feng. When the time comes, don't call me Brother Feng. Brother Feng was very satisfied at this time and didn't notice Yi Quan's expression at this time. However, even if he noticed it, he wouldn't think too much about it. In other words, he didn't think that in the Yi family, especially in this kind of mystic realm for newcomers, he would meet any opponents. In the current Yi family, there was almost no one who was qualified to make him look at them differently. Yi Quan was only slightly in his eyes. However, suddenly, in the void, a big dragon suddenly appeared when his big hand was about to grab the number 1 mystic realm. It roared towards the sky and opened its bloody mouth, directly biting his big hand into pieces on the spot. If he hadn't quickly retracted his hand, even his hand would have been bitten. How is this possible? Suddenly, a look of surprise flashed in his eyes. One must know that with his cultivation, what kind of formation could stop him? Along the way, he saw all the mystic realms with his own eyes. Ordinary mystic realms could be crushed by him with one hand. Why is this mystic realm so unusual? At this time, he seemed to understand a little why Yi Quan didn't let him touch this mystic realm. However, he didn't take it to heart and attacked again. Let's see what's so strange about this mystic realm. One of his big hands directly turned into a big hand of burning flames, with an unparalleled momentum, directly smashing down from the sky. The terrible flame, like the real fire of the sun, directly burned through the void. Even though the people were far away, they could feel the amazing temperature. This series of changes also caused many experts of the Yi family who were in closed-door training in the human secret realm to come out one after another. What on earth was that terrible pressure that seemed to make people despair? Could it be that there was an invasion? They leaped out one after another. When they came out, they saw such a shocking scene. A huge hand that looked like it could destroy the world condensed in the void. Then, it burned fiercely and slammed down. Even the sky was shaking slightly. Even though they were far away, they could feel the fatal heat and the terrifying power. It shook the entire human secret realm. Almost instantly, their faces turned pale. This kind of terrible power, in their eyes, was no different from the wrath of the gods. In the Yi family, those who had this kind of cultivation were undoubtedly the leaders of the major forces, but the leaders of the Yi family would absolutely not fight like this in the Yi family. It was not that they had never seen celestial realm experts, but compared to celestial realm experts were also inferior. The two sides seemed to be at a completely different level of power. That direction is the human number 1 secret realm! Someone suddenly reacted, looking at the big fire hand in the sky fiercely smashing down. Human number 1 secret realm, isn't Yi Shiwen in closed-door training? Why is the battle happening over there? It's over, it's over. This human character number 1 mystery realm won't be able to hold on much longer. The person who made this move has probably already stepped into the celestial realm. The celestial realm experts I've seen in the past are nothing compared to this terrifying power. Many people were suddenly stunned, horrified, and could only watch the big fire hand directly smashing down. Roar! There was another deafening roar as a huge dragon materialized in the void. Immediately after, a dragon claw clawed at the huge flaming hand in the void. It was the authentic dragon claw hand. You're courting death! Brother Feng sneered, and the big fire hand directly smashed down, collapsing to space, directly landing on the huge dragon's body. Roar! The huge dragon continued to roar, and its body was directly penetrated, but it turned back and bit the big fire hand. It itself was formed by the condensation of spiritual energy. For ordinary creatures, this kind of injury was enough to completely annihilate them, but for this huge dragon, it was nothing at all. Its body that was penetrated was constantly being replenished by the spiritual energy. Let's see how long you can last, Brother Feng said, and he increased the strength, firmly believing that it was enough to destroy the entire formation. Although this formation was powerful, no matter how powerful it was, there was a limit, and it could not be endured without limit, especially this kind of formation, which was especially dependent on spiritual energy. Without enough spiritual energy, it could not continue to be supported at all. Boom! 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 However, no matter how much strength he exerted, this huge dragon could only bite down on the flaming hand. No matter how much it burned its body, it didn't budge at all. It was as if it had been imprisoned by the nomological power of a powerful array formation. It couldn't move forward at all. At this time, in the formation, 4 similar huge dragons directly rushed out, roaring, and directly rushed towards Brother Feng in the void. The other 4 dragons weren't inferior to the previous one at all. Every single one of them was terrifyingly powerful, and the most terrifying thing was that they weren't afraid of death at all, nor did they have the concept of death at all. These huge dragons were extremely powerful, and in an instant, they rushed to Brother Feng's side. One of them was the fastest, and it opened its bloody mouth, biting towards Brother Feng. Damn it! Brother Feng suddenly became a little angry, and directly smashed his palm, the burning palm technique, directly blowing up the huge dragon's head in the air. However, the situation did not improve at all, and the other 3 huge dragons took this opportunity to attack. At this moment, when everyone caught sight of this scene, they understood that this man number 1's secret ground was most likely not as simple as it seemed. Chapter 1633. Especially Beishan Shui and the experts who came with Beishan Shui. They looked at the members of the Yi clan and saw that they all had a look of understanding on their faces. At this moment, they finally understood why Yi Kuang didn't want Brother Feng to make a move. Even though this human character number 1's secret realm was within the human character secret realm, it was still incredible. How strong and terrifying was a celestial being realm expert. Especially this Brother Feng, whose strength was even more tyrannical. But to think that he would be trapped by a formation. What kind of formation could actually trap a celestial being realm expert like him? They couldn't imagine what the situation would be like if they were in Yi Kuang's shoes. What they didn't know was that everyone in the Yi clan was also shocked at this time. On the contrary, they were scared to death, especially those who thought that Yi Shiwen had declined. At this time, they were even more shocked. They didn't know whether Yi Shiwen had declined or not, but they could see that Yi Shiwen was still the same as before, and couldn't be easily humiliated just by looking at this formation. Especially Yi Kuang. He knew that Yi Shiwen had a celestial realm expert beside him, but that celestial realm expert hadn't even attacked yet. Just with Yi Shiwen's formation, he could actually block Brother Feng. Needless to say, he was shocked. They didn't know that Yi Shiwen was currently using the Jin method to protect himself. It was the 5-Chi Imperial formation that he had learned from 5 Elements Supreme's personal letter. Normally, Yi Shiwen would practice using the 5-Chi Imperial formation, but at the critical moment, this 5-Chi Imperial formation could also display unparalleled power and block the enemy. The most important thing was that behind these 5 big dragons were the 5 fundamental dragon veins that Yi Shiwen had left behind to form the 5-Chi Imperial formation. The power of dragon veins was so great that even a celestial realm expert wouldn't find it easy to subdue a fully grown dragon vein. Moreover, it was 5 dragon veins formed by the power of the formation, so its power was quite impressive. It didn't take long for Brother Feng to realize how extraordinary the 5-Chi's Imperial formation was. Every time he blasted a dragon's head apart, it would quickly be entangled by the other dragons. The dragon that was blasted apart would quickly reform itself. He was also astonished. To construct such a large formation, there was naturally no need to mention the consumption. Every time the dragon head was condensed, it would consume a large amount of spirit chi. It was still easy to judge that it was painful. He had originally thought that the other party would not be able to hold on for long, and that the entire formation would be completely broken because there was no energy to support it. Who knew that he had already destroyed the dragon heads more than 10 times, but he still could not break free from these damned dragons. However, the dragons did not show any signs of collapsing as they continued to pester him. If he knew that behind these big dragons were the incarnations of the dragon veins, he wouldn't have done such a futile thing. If he wanted to exhaust the dragon veins, it would be impossible even if he exhausted himself to death. Although his cultivation was extremely strong and he had a mystical flame in his body to protect himself, he had no way to break free from the entanglement of these big dragons. The situation immediately fell into a state of entanglement, and stalemate. At this moment, the little Kunping popped its head out of the formation. Looking at Brother Feng, who was surrounded by the big dragons, it couldn't help but make a face and shake its butt. It laughed at Brother Feng like a mischievous child and revealed a happy smile. Although it wasn't in human form, everyone could clearly feel the joy of this little Kunping. They couldn't help but frown. Yi Kuang, is this Kunping related to your Yi family? Beishan Shui asked. If he didn't believe it at the beginning, he could only speculate after seeing the little Kunping enter and exit the human number 1 secret realm unscathed. However, Brother Feng was attacked. Yi Kuang rolled his eyes at him and didn't intend to answer him at all. However, he was also very puzzled. He didn't know if it was related to the Yi family, but it was most likely related to Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen had always been a mysterious person. No one knew what he had done in the past 10 years. In fact, in the past 10 years, except for Yi Qianqian, who entered the human number 1 secret realm, no one else had entered the human number 1 secret realm. No one knew how his realm was and how much progress he had made. At this time, even if a little Kunping suddenly appeared, he wouldn't be surprised. This little Kunping didn't run anywhere else but to the human number 1 secret realm. Moreover, the terrifying formation of the human number 1 secret realm didn't attack it. It could be seen that it had something to do with Yi Shiwen. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little bitter. Why did Yi Shiwen get all the good stuff? This was not an ordinary spiritual pet. This was a Kunping, one of the 10 ancient fierce beasts. Although he didn't know that the entire demon territory had been turned upside down because of the theft of the Kunping egg, and that several celestial being realm demons had fought with the beast king in the demon territory, he could imagine how difficult it must have been. Damn it! Destroy them all! At this time, endless flames instantly emerged from Brother Feng's body. It directly expanded on the spot, turning the area within a radius of hundreds of miles into a sea of fire. In this sea of fire, the several giant dragons were also burned into ashes amidst continuous roars. This is Nanming mythical fire. It's so powerful. It is said that Nanming mythical fire is one of the most powerful flames in the world. Only the legendary True Sun fire and a few other mystical fires can be compared to it. Beishan Shui couldn't help but say in shock. Everyone retreated one after another in order to avoid being touched by this kind of deviant flame. That would be the end. Even such a powerful dragon was actually completely burned to ashes. At this time, Brother Feng, who was in the void, had endless flames attached to the surface of his body. He was like a flame creature, and the area within a radius of hundreds of miles was filled with flames. This was his domain space. These giant dragons had really angered him, so he directly released his flame domain, which was a powerful and indestructible flame. The giant dragons were instantly burned into ashes. His terrible momentum directly suppressed the entire human secret realm. Even many experts of the celestial being realm and the Earth's secret realm were alarmed. The pressure was still spreading out to the void. Even in the Heaven Talent number 1 secret realm, some old antiques who had been in closed-door training all year round were awakened by this terrible momentum. There were even experts of the celestial being realm among them. At this time, everyone was alarmed. They all released their primordial spirits to see what was going on. Many people were even ready to fight. The power of such a powerful expert didn't belong to any expert of the Yi family that they were familiar with. Could it be that there was an invasion? Many people were shocked, especially when they saw Brother Feng, who was like a flame creature in the void. The terrifying aura that belonged to the celestial being realm covered everything. Even the old antiques of the celestial being realm noticed it. If it wasn't for the fact that Yi Kuang was right next to him and didn't make a move, they would have personally taken action to drive away the enemy. Normally, if an enemy could invade this place, it meant that the Yi family had been completely destroyed. The situation was extremely tense. Hee hee hee. Brother Feng couldn't help but sneer. You have completely angered me, completely angered me. He couldn't help but roar in a low voice like a wild beast. I want to see what kind of thing you are. How dare you stop me from advancing? He sneered and took a step forward. In an instant, he was already outside the human's secret realm number 1. His flame domain instantly crashed into the 5G's Imperial formation. Boom! An earth-shattering collision was heard. Boundless spiritual chi and flames collided violently. It was extremely shocking. His flame domain was like a sharp sword, piercing into the 5G's Imperial formation and almost piercing through it. Little Kun Peng, who had been making faces and laughing at Brother Feng, was instantly shocked. The terrifying flames hadn't even gotten close, but just the high temperature alone was enough to set his entire body on fire. He immediately screamed and rolled around in the sky. Although no one understood bird language, they could understand what he meant through his mental fluctuations. He was scolding Brother Feng for being shameless. Everyone could only frown as they watched this funny little Kun Peng flapping his wings and condensing the laws of water and the sky. He summoned water dragons to land on his body to extinguish the flames. It took a lot of effort to extinguish the flames. His entire body was extremely black like an African chicken. He pointed at Brother Feng with one of his wings and scolded him. His appearance was as comical as one could imagine. At this time, Brother Feng had no time to care about this Kun Peng. He only wanted to break through the formation, grab the person inside, and then strangle him to death. Only then could he vent his hatred. No one had ever dared to make him suffer like this. Brother Feng sneered and said, "What the hell are you? Why are you hiding inside? Come out if you have the ability. That's right. You should also be a member of the Yi family. Is there anyone in the Yi family who doesn't dare to show their face?" Beishan Shui also chimed in. "It's a pleasure to have a friend come from afar. Although it's an unwelcome guest, I can't ignore it." At this time, a leisurely voice came from the formation. It sounded like a sigh, but it also seemed like it was suppressing its anger. Just as this voice finished speaking, a huge hand instantly condensed in the void, flashing with golden light. In an instant, it grabbed towards Brother Feng, who was in the flame domain at lightning speed. Chapter 1634. A big hand reached out and tore through the sky. It was shining with a golden light as it directly grabbed Brother Feng. Brother Feng had a disdainful smile on his face. It was impossible for such a big hand to penetrate his flame domain. Sure enough, when the big hand approached his flame domain, it was instantly burned by the Nanmingli fire in his flame domain. The terrifying flames burned on the big hand. Neymar had thought that it would be burned to ashes in an instant. Who knew that the golden divinity on the big hand would resist the Nanmingli fire? Although it was still burning, it would not be burned to ashes in an instant. This unforeseen event was completely beyond Brother Feng's expectations. He was not prepared at all. At this time, he was almost caught by the big hand without any defense. How is this possible? His eyes were full of disbelief. However, there was no time for him to think. He suddenly stomped his feet and his body instantly flew out like a cannonball. However, he did not move forward, but backward. He wanted to avoid the big hand's attack. However, the big hand was like a dogskin plaster. It directly stuck to him and grabbed him again. It was as fast as lightning. If Brother Feng's speed was already very fast, Neymar's big golden hand was actually much faster than him. Seeing that it was about to catch Brother Feng, the big golden hand was finally burned to ashes by his flame domain. At this time, he reluctantly heaved a sigh of relief. It was too thrilling just now. If he had been caught by the big golden hand, it was inevitable that he would have paid a price to escape. Then, his face became even uglier. He felt that his face had been put on the ground and ruthlessly trampled. Originally, he did not care about the so-called master of the secret realm at all. In the end, he was put in a bad position and was almost caught by the big hand. At this time, he began to be a little curious. Who was the master of the secret realm? According to the saying, the human secret realm should only be a place where the younger generation of the Yi family gathered. Among the younger generation of the Yi family, there was actually someone who could threaten him. This was simply impossible. He looked coldly at the human secret realm number 1 and said faintly, "Who is it? Do you dare to show yourself?" At this time, not only was Brother Feng curious, but Beishan Shui and the others were also curious. Who was this person to be able to threaten Brother Feng? In the younger generation of the Yi family, there were only a few people who had stepped into the celestial realm, and they were Yi Xiukong, Yi Qiong, and Yi Kuang. Yi Xiukong was exploring in a distant space, and Yi Qiong had followed the family head to the royal court. Now, in the younger generation of the Yi family, there was only Yi Kuang. This was also the reason why Yi Kuang was the one who came out to entertain them. Apart from Yi Kuang, there was no one else in the Yi clan who could hold the fort. Beishan Shui knew this very well, which was why he chose to come at this time. Who was the person inside? The Yi clan's secret realm number 1 had never been open to the public, so even if he wanted to know, it was impossible for him to know what was going on inside. At most, he could only rely on some information from some hidden spies, but it was not enough to determine who was inside. As for those people from the Yi family, they naturally knew who was in the human character number 1's secret realm. It was Yi Shiwen. But they absolutely did not expect that Yi Shiwen, who had not made any moves for 10 years, would actually make such a sharp move. They had also heard the voice from before, and it was indeed Yi Shiwen. Especially Yi Shui, her relationship with Yi Shiwen had always been very good, and it was even Yi Shiwen who first introduced Yi Shiwen to the law enforcement hall. Naturally, the relationship between the two was very good, but in the past 10 years, Yi Shiwen had been in a state of closed-door training, and only Yi Qianqian had the opportunity to enter for training for a period of time. The others simply did not know what kind of situation he was in. At this time, seeing that Yi Shiwen was not only fine, but on the contrary, looking at the state of his attack, it was unknown how many times stronger than 10 years ago, she was extremely gratified. But at this time, Yi Kuang's mood was very complicated. At this time, he did not know whether to feel lucky or depressed. Yi Shiwen's strength really did not stop. "Show up? I don't think it's necessary. If you want to see me, you have to break my big formation first." Yi Shiwen's faint voice came from inside, and it seemed that he was very confident in his big formation. "Humph, let's see how long you can last. This big formation of yours is not very profound, see how I break it." Brother Feng suddenly sneered, and directly descended. His flame domain was completely unfolded. Unlike ordinary flame domains, this flame domain itself was condensed by Nanming leaf fire, one of the most overbearing flames in the world, and it was many times more tyrannical than ordinary domains. Boom! The entire flame domain directly deformed under the control of Brother Feng, turning into a huge flame-long sword, and with an amazing momentum, it fiercely slammed into the formation. Rumble! The entire flame-long sword and the 5 Chi's imperial formation fiercely collided, and the whole formation began to rumble and shake, as if it would collapse at any time. And at this time, 5 long dragons appeared again, and completely condensed again, as if the ones that were completely annihilated just now were not these big dragons. Whoosh! 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 These big dragons were extremely fast, and in an instant, they directly pounced in front of Brother Feng. Their bodies were hundreds of feet long, and they directly stretched out from the depths of the formation. They opened their bloody mouths and bit towards Brother Feng. Boom! 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 Brother Feng held the flame-long sword in his hand, and he was like a noble flame god, wielding it freely. His sword technique was extremely mysterious. Although he was not a sword cultivator, his cultivation was extremely strong, and in addition, his sword technique was very exquisite. It could be said to be a top-notch sword technique, and the power displayed was naturally extremely strong. He threw out a sky full of sword light, piercing through the sky and shattering the void. Those big dragons were all killed by him in the void, and their entire heads were chopped off. But it was useless. These big dragons seemed to be endless, and when one was killed, another would automatically revive. Originally, Brother Feng thought that as long as he continued to kill like this, he did not believe that this formation could be maintained. After all, the power of this formation was extraordinary, and even a Heaven Realm expert could be trapped, so the price was naturally very high. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult to maintain for a long time. To be able to maintain it for a long time, it was all for sex and other large forces. For a private person to be able to use such a formation, he was already a very wealthy person. But who knew that he still underestimated this formation, or rather, underestimated the extent of Yishuan's wealth? Although young Kunpeng had absorbed 9 spiritual veins, he himself still had 5 dragon veins, which was enough to form the 5 Qis imperial formation. Competing with the dragon veins, which could support the development of an entire sect, in terms of consumption, was undoubtedly suicidal. And at this time, although Brother Feng did not know that Yishuan had the support of the dragon veins and that it was very difficult to break through, he still more or less guessed that Yishuan probably did not lack spirit crystals. If they wanted to compete with each other, he probably would not be able to outlast Yishuan. When he thought of this, he was depressed. Why did he encounter such a difficult opponent? Even if it was a normal formation, he was not afraid at all. As long as it was a formation, there was a way to break it. The more complicated the formation, the easier it was to break it. As long as the core of the formation was found, he could destroy it. Not to mention a formation like the 5 Qis Imperial formation that did not look complicated. But he had no way to break it because Yishuan did not use any techniques at all. He purely used the endless big dragons to drown him. This was also thanks to his cultivation. If it was an ordinary person, or even Beishan Shui, they would probably be in a difficult situation at this time. At this time, Beishan Shui looked at the human number 1 secret realm with a serious expression. She originally thought that the Yi family was only SOSO, with only those 3 people who were presentable. Who knew that there was such a person hidden, and had not been discovered. The Yi family was really worthy of being a marquee family in the human clan. This foundation could not be underestimated. At this time, Beishan Shui directly shouted, "Brother Feng, let me help you!" As he said this, he directly leaped out, and flew directly towards the human number 1 secret realm. A big hand condensed in the air, and then slapped down fiercely. The 5 Qis Imperial formation's attention was focused on Brother Feng. It did not expect that there would be a celestial realm expert who would be so shameless to interfere. Pun! With a deafening roar, the entire tactical matrix shook violently and a crack appeared. Brother Feng was not a pretentious person. He didn't say nonsense like this was his battle and he didn't need others to intervene. Instead, he directly condensed a long sword in the void. It was a burning long sword. The long sword condensed by Nanming Ignis was comparable to ordinary magic weapons and celestial devices. Whoosh! The long sword formed from the entire Nanming leaf fire directly broke through the crack and directly slashed down. Boom! After the formation was broken, without any protection, the continent of the human number 1 secret realm shattered into 2 in the air. The fragments fell directly onto the planet below, forming a huge meteor shower. 2 evil guests really came. But since you are here, then don't leave. Don't think that the Yi family is a place where you can come and go as you please. A cold voice came out, and then a terrifying aura rose from inside. Chapter 1635. This frightening aura was like a cyclone that continued to rise. As this aura continued to rise, waves of powerful pressure swept out in all directions. It was as if a huge tornado had been formed, a tornado that was completely condensed from spiritual energy. And this tornado that was condensed from spiritual energy was also slowly absorbed by the figure in the middle. Like a giant whale sucking in water, it absorbed the entire spiritual energy tornado cleanly, and cleanly in just a few breaths. And at this time, everyone finally saw clearly who this person was. This was a young man in a green shirt. His face was delicate, but he wasn't too outstanding. However, he had a temperament that absolutely couldn't be ignored. Yi Shiwen, it really is him! Yi Quan's heart trembled crazily. Although he had already guessed that Yi Shiwen should be cultivating inside and the one who attacked just now should be Yi Shiwen, but when he really saw Yi Shiwen appear, his heart couldn't help but be incomparably shocked. He also didn't dare to believe it. 10 years ago, he was just at the 6th sky of Celestial Realm. How could he really fight against the Celestial Realm expert? This was abnormally unbelievable no matter how he looked at it. And behind him, the people of the Yi family all revealed looks of disbelief. Although they had already guessed it, they still couldn't accept it when they saw it for themselves. Yi Shiwen didn't have the overlord aura of someone who had stepped into the Celestial Realm, but he had a feeling that he definitely wouldn't lose to an overlord. After Yi Shiwen absorbed the spiritual energy, the aura on his body suddenly exploded. It swept out in circles, like a raging wave that was released into the distance. 7th sky of Celestial Realm, he had finally stepped into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. In such a short period of time, not even a day, he had stepped into the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. If it was someone else, it would be something unimaginable, but it wasn't the case for him. To him, he didn't use a day to step from the 6th sky of Celestial Realm to the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. Instead, he had to take the previous 10 years into account, and he only stepped from the 6th sky of Celestial Realm to the 7th sky of Celestial Realm. He had sacrificed temporary development in exchange for an incomparably deep foundation. Finally, at this moment, he had a rich harvest. It was a pity that he had just stepped into the 7th heaven of the heaven tier, and there was already an unwelcome guest who didn't give him the time to consolidate. Otherwise, he would be even more powerful. Beside him, young Kunpeng was also constantly narrating something. He kept pointing at Beishan Shui and Brother Feng, as if he was complaining to Yi Shiwen about something. After all these years, Yi Shiwen and young Kunpeng could already be said to be telepathic. Although he couldn't understand what young Kunpeng was saying in bird language, he could understand what it meant. He gave a rough account of how he had been targeted by these two people. Then, he complained to Yi Shiwen about their atrocities. He felt wronged, and hoped that Yi Shiwen would avenge him. This was the true power of the great beast-taming art that Yi Mo had taught him. It could allow spiritual pets to recognize their masters, but it wouldn't cause them to lose their independent thoughts. It could even be said that apart from recognizing their masters, there was no difference between the spiritual pets and spiritual pets. This young Kunpeng had just been born not long ago. It was like a child. At this time, it was clearly a child who had lost a fight and was looking for an adult to get back at them. Yi Shiwen smiled and didn't say much because he was very clear about the value of young Kunpeng. Before it hatched, he didn't even dare to tell the higher-ups of the Yi family, for fear that he would be forced to hand it over. Although the possibility of this was not very high, he couldn't rule out the possibility that some higher-ups might not be able to figure out the situation and want Yi Shiwen to hand it over. Now that it had hatched, it was nothing. Young Kunpeng had already recognized its master, and there was no way to change it. However, he was also very clear about how attractive young Kunpeng was to others. Once discovered, there was almost no way to avoid being targeted by others. However, he didn't expect that in just one day of closed-door training, he actually made such a big mess and caused so much trouble. However, he was already prepared. Since he had decided to hatch the Kunpeng, there was almost no way to avoid the trouble that would arise. He looked at the two people and smiled coldly. Since these troubles were destined to happen, then he would start with these two people. I think you two don't want to live anymore. You destroyed my secret territory, Yi Shiwen said with a cold expression. He didn't expect the number one secret territory to be destroyed in his hands. Although it was not destroyed by his hands, there was naturally no need to mention the relationship between them. I think you're the one who doesn't understand the situation. Do you know who the two of us are? Beishan Shui took a step forward and said rudely. His eyes were still very fearful at first. That powerful force had completely shocked him, but very soon, he discovered that this person was actually only in the 7th level of the heaven realm. This made him completely relieved. A mere 7th level of the heaven realm had just broken through and had not stabilized his realm. He was no match for him at all. I don't care who you are. Since you're an unwelcome guest, then don't even think about leaving, Yishuwen sneered and said. Beishan Shui suddenly felt like he was about to go crazy. This Yishuwen repeatedly did not play by the rules, leaving him with no place to vent his anger. The Beishan clan was also very famous in the ancient Barrens continent. In the 100-clan alliance, they were even more powerful. No one had ever dared to speak to him so rudely. Beishan Shui was completely enraged. He directly attacked. A big hand slapped out and fell down. It instantly turned into a big hand and grabbed towards Yishuwen. This big hand condensed countless laws of the Great Path, entwining and dancing. You're from the Beishan clan? Yishuwen quickly discovered that this method of attack was too familiar. It was not the first time he had fought with the experts of the Beishan clan. In particular, the cultivation techniques practiced by the experts of the Beishan clan were very similar. Hence, they all had a similar aura. Yishuwen believed that he would not be wrong. However, he was also very puzzled. It was needless to say how important the number 1 secret realm was to the Yi clan. He had never heard of it being open to outsiders. How did Beishan Shui enter? Could it be that the 100-clan alliance had completely broken through the human territory? After thinking about it, he felt that it was impossible. After all, although a large part of the human strength was held back by the demon clan, if they underestimated the human race, they would really be dead. The reason why the human race could stand on the ancient Barrens continent and occupy the most fertile land despite being surrounded by enemies was not just because they had more people. However, this was not the time for him to think too much. He pointed his finger out on the spot, using the sky shaking style. The entire void was shaking crazily, vibrating according to a certain frequency. The powerful shock wave caused by the vibration instantly swept out and fiercely collided with the big hand. Boom! The shock wave swept over like waves, directly shattering Beishan Shui's big hand on the spot. Inch by inch it shattered. Beishan Shui was still in disbelief. He did not expect that the full-powered attack of a Heaven Realm expert like him would be broken by a kid at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm in front of him. It was simply a great humiliation. In the eyes of ordinary people, an expert at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm was undoubtedly a high and mighty figure in the ancient Barrens continent. However, in the eyes of an overlord like him, he was nothing at all. He was not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as them. Hence, he did not care about Yishuwen's cultivation at all. However, he did not expect Yishuwen to give him such a show of strength right from the start. And Yishuwen's finger, after breaking his big hand, went straight to his head at lightning speed, without any reduction in its momentum. It seemed as if it was going to smash his entire head. You're courting death. Don't be so arrogant. Today, I'll let you see the true secret art of our Beishan clan. Beishan Shui sneered, and all the chi on his body began to spread, vibrating in the void. The true essence turned into a sky full of sword light in the void, and the sword light condensed into a huge river of sword wei in the void. The laws wrapped around each of the sword light, making it look even more terrifying. Each of the sword light could easily kill a celestial realm expert, not to mention that there were so many of them condensing at the same time. I'll let you see the power of our Beishan clan's sword principal secret art, Tianyuan sword technique. He shouted, and the river of the wei of the sword whistled over with unparalleled power, shattering the void. The power of the space seemed so fragile before the power of the river of the wei of the sword. It completely collapsed, and it did not even manage to hold on for a little longer. Yishuwen looked at the Tianyuan sword technique whistling over, and he kept retreating. Anyway, the number 1 secret territory had been completely destroyed, and he no longer cared what would become of this place. Those few dragon veins had already been stored in the Tianyuan mirror. He stepped on an escape light, and his figure quickly swept back, but this sword light followed him like a shadow, with an irresistible momentum. It would not stop until it killed Yishuwen. It's useless. No matter where you run, you won't be able to escape from my sword. Even a Heaven's End realm expert would be heavily injured by my sword, let alone a mere 7th layer of the Heaven's End realm like you. What a joke! Beishan Shui shouted. Do you really think that I can't do anything to your sword technique? Yishuan's cold voice came. The truly ridiculous person is you. Chapter 1636. You're the laughable one! Yishuan's voice was so cold that it seemed as if he had crawled out of hell. At this moment, Beishan Ju instinctively realized that something was wrong. Beishan Shui, be careful. He's stalling for time and trying to stabilize his realm. At this moment, Brother Feng, who was beside him, had a higher cultivation. He actually saw through Yishuan's intentions and realized that Yishuan was stalling for time to stabilize his realm. Under such circumstances, stabilizing his realm and not stabilizing his realm were two completely different matters. Stabilizing his realm? He actually has the time to care about this when he's fighting me. I think he's tired of living, Beishan Shui said proudly. As the top genius of the Beishan clan, he was in the Heaven Paragon realm. He was an overlord even in the ancient Barons continent. Among the younger generation, his status was unimaginable. This was also why he had such an arrogant personality. It was already good enough that he didn't get distracted. At this moment, Yishuan actually dared to care about stabilizing his realm while fighting him. He directed the long river of swordlight to chase after Yishuan, trying to kill him. How could an ordinary person compete with the speed of a swordlight? However, Yishuan was not an ordinary person. He had devil wings. Even if he didn't spread his devil wings, the speed of his agility technique was still amazing. At this time, he finally attacked. A big hand stretched out and turned into a dragon claw. Great dragon capture technique! With a loud bellow, he grabbed at the long river of swordsmanship with his huge hand. Boom! A huge explosion sounded. Amidst the huge hand and the sword light river collided violently. The heavenly origin sword art of the Beishan clan was indeed extremely powerful. It was so terrifying that it could destroy the world. However, his opponent was Yishuan. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to use their hands to grab the sword light, but Yishuan did. Accompanied by a huge explosion, the entire sword light river began to shatter like glass. It shattered bit by bit. Then, like dominoes, everything collapsed in an instant. Beishan Shui was taken aback, and his body retreated again and again. Countless sword lights collapsed in front of him, and he could only look on helplessly, but he couldn't do anything about it. Countless sword lights collapsed in front of him, and he couldn't do anything about it. How is this possible? My Tianyuan sword technique has long been cultivated to the point of perfection. Even a celestial realm expert would be heavily injured if they were hit by it. They might even die. How could it be broken by a brat like this? He still couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that he had been defeated by Yishuan in just one move. But at this time, it was no longer a good time to be surprised. At this time, Yishuan directly rushed up. Die! Yishuan let out a loud roar. His whole body was like a golden lightning, and he directly rushed in front of Beishan Shui. He pointed out with his finger, and instantly, the entire sky was filled with finger shadows. Beishan Ju clearly knew that only one of these finger shadows was real, but it just so happened that this real finger shadow had a heaven-shaking aura that completely enveloped him, causing him to be unable to move at all. A terrifying will firmly locked onto him. Endless chi appeared behind Yishuan, and the sky was filled with it. It interweaved into endless laws. Once he attacked, it was a big killing move, and he wanted to completely eliminate Beishan Shui. You're already very good to be able to force me to use this move. Beishan Shui sneered, and suddenly calmed down. He opened his eyes, and his aura suddenly rose. His whole body was covered with a kind of colorful light, and it transformed into a king's robe. His whole person seemed to have become a god, and his body doubled in size. His whole person became abnormally cold and emotionless. Boom! Yishuan's finger pointed down, and it was actually destroyed by the colorful light on Beishan Shue's body. In just an instant, it disappeared without a trace, and he couldn't resist at all. This is? Yishuan's eyes flashed with a bit of surprise. He had fought with the masters of the Beishan clan more than once or twice, but he had never seen this move. You're already very good to be able to force me to use the colorful sky armor, but in front of my colorful sky armor, no one can escape by chance. Beishan Shui said as he looked at Yishuan coldly. His whole body was completely buried in the colorful light, and he looked clearly like a demon. Colorful sky armor! He actually mastered the colorful sky armor! Yiquang's eyes were full of surprise and doubt. Senior brother Yiquang, what is the colorful sky armor? Why have we never heard of the Beishan clan having this kind of martial arts? Someone asked. The colorful sky armor is one of the unique martial arts of the Beishan clan, but very few people can practice it. This is a kind of special physique that incorporates their clan's most precious treasure, the colorful divine robe, into the body. It is connected with the bloodline and condensed into a special physique. It is comparable to those innate physiques that are extremely tyrannical, Yiquang said. In this generation, I have not heard of anyone who has really mastered it. I didn't expect Beishan Shui to actually master it. The truth is hidden deep enough. This kind of colorful sky armor is a kind of magical power, and the strength will be greatly improved, and the most terrifying thing is that this power will be provided by the colorful divine robe. As long as there are enough spirit crystals, you can be invincible. It can be said to be a very terrifying method of physique tempering, Yiquang said. In this case, Yishuan is in danger. At this time, Yishue finally couldn't help but say. He was still worried about the safety of his friend. I'm afraid that Yishuan will encounter trouble this time, but it doesn't matter. If there is any danger, I will also take action. Although I will deal with Yishuan, I can't just watch Beishan Shui act presumptuously in our Yi clan, Yiquang said. When everyone heard this, they immediately felt relieved. If Yiquang said so, then there was naturally no problem. Moreover, it was useless for them to be worried. This level of battle was not something they could participate in. Yishuan, a mere seventh sky of Celestial Realm, was actually able to contend against the Celestial Realm Master. He was simply an unprecedented monster. They had never thought that such a monster would actually appear in the Yi family. And most importantly, after all, this was the Yi clan's territory. How could those old monsters watch Beishan Shui and the others act presumptuously? At the same time, in the depths of the Heaven's secret realm, several old monsters were also in discussion. 7-color heavenly armor, he even mastered this magical power. This guy named Beishan Shui, I'm afraid his position in the Beishan clan is not low. In the future, he also has hope to take over the position of the clan leader. Sigh, now that the great calamity is coming, geniuses are like a geyser. Not only our human clan, but our Yi clan also has many geniuses. Even in other clans, there are countless geniuses. In this way, I'm worried that when the great calamity really comes, it will be a terrible calamity. It shouldn't be. Our human clan is different from countless years ago. Our foundation is naturally incomparably deep. Moreover, because of this, didn't we old guys also break through the realm one after another? The pros and cons are mixed. It's not necessarily good or bad. Continue to watch. Is this kid also from our Yi clan? I really don't know him. I feel that every time I wake up from closed-door training, a large number of geniuses from our Yi clan will appear. Well, at the critical moment, I'll take action later. We can't let the guys from the Beishan clan be arrogant on our side. But what's going on? Secret Realm number 1 has never been open to outsiders. Why did it open this time and let a bunch of people in? When the time comes, I want to ask for an explanation. And at this time, there was also a change in the field. Originally, Yishuan had the upper hand. At this time, it seemed that the situation had been reversed. Beishan Shui's body emitted layers of 7-colored light. Circles of light swept out like waves, occupying half of the mountain. Yishuan's clothes were fluttering in the wind, and the astral wind was making him feel pain. After summoning the seven-color heavenly armor, the power of Beishan Shue's whole body skyrocketed. Like a ghost, he approached Yishuan step by step. Every step could cause the laws of heaven and earth to fluctuate violently, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was like boiling water boiling. Under the control of this mysterious seven-colored light, he seemed to have opened a domain, and he was the only monarch in this domain. As time passed, the aura of Beishan Shue's body became more and more tyrannical, and also more and more stable. A powerful aura that belonged to the overlord of the celestial realm shot out, firmly suppressing Yishuan as if to completely crush him to death. Yishuan stood motionless. His stature was as straight as a spear. No matter how the wind blew or how the rain fell, he wouldn't move in the slightest. Not far behind him, Kunpeng also seemed to feel this kind of pressure. It pointed at Beishan Shue in the sky, and cursed in bird language. Boom! At this time, Beishan Shue finally moved. He went straight to the point, and directly grabbed Yishuan with his palm. He wanted to grab Yishuan to death. His martial power had suddenly improved a lot. Compared to a moment ago, it was simply incomparable. Suddenly, Yishuan opened his eyes, and two rays of light appeared in his eyes. This is the seven-color divine robe? I didn't expect the seven-color divine robe to have such a use, and it can even evolve into the seven-color heavenly armor, Yishuan said in amazement. How could he not see the seven-color divine robe? Many high-level members of the Beishan clan also had the seven-color divine robe, but he had never seen anyone use the seven-color divine robe to such a superb level. Compared with Beishan Shue, the previous Beishan Shue, North Mountain Ling, and others were simply trash. Beishan Shue's grasp was getting closer and closer, and at this time, Yishuan finally moved. Chapter 1637. He also reached out with one hand, which turned into a monstrous dragon claw. It was as if it covered the sky and the sun, and it clawed out directly. A faint dragon roar could be heard. Do you think I'm still the same as before? You want to stop me with such a move? Beishan Shue snorted coldly. Like a thunderclap, he stepped in all directions and increased his strength. There were countless martial arts manuals in his big hand, and endless martial arts mysteries were rolling in it. It was the embodiment of his martial arts will. Boom! It was another earth-shattering collision. It was an exceptionally terrifying collision. The two huge hands collided fiercely in the void. Endless colorful rays of light and golden light splashed out in the void. Each drop of light could penetrate the entire space. Although the human secret realm had been reinforced, it definitely could not withstand such a battle of the celestial realm. There were not many experts of this level even in the Yi family, let alone in the human secret realm. The number one secret realm was not open to the public. If the battle had already reached this level, it meant that the enemy had completely defeated the Yi family. A large area of the space collapsed. Both of them took a few steps back. They were actually evenly matched, and they were not inferior to each other at all. Evenly matched. Beishan Shue suddenly felt a little incredulous. Evenly matched? How can it be evenly matched? After I used the rainbow heavenly armor, my strength increased by more than a little. Forget about it just now, how can he still be evenly matched with me now? His strength has actually increased. At this time, he suddenly realized this problem. Compared to just now, Yishuan's strength had obviously increased tremendously. Just now, he did not take Yishuan seriously at all, so he did not pay much attention to Yishuan's changes. But when he really sank his heart to feel it, he suddenly realized that Yishuan's aura was actually increasing all the time. Although this kind of increase every second was not very obvious, it was quite considerable when accumulated. And he actually did not notice it at all just now. Or perhaps, as Brother Feng said, Yishuan was constantly consolidating his own realm. In other words, this wasn't Yishuan's strongest fighting state. He was still getting stronger and stronger. He would never be able to know how long Yi Shiwen had been preparing for this breakthrough. He had been preparing for 10 years. This had made his foundation exceptionally deep. It was very difficult for him to make a breakthrough. However, he would become unimaginably tyrannical once he made a breakthrough. Over the past 10 years, he did not know how much dragon chi and spirit chi he had absorbed from the dragon vein. His foundation was so deep that even he could not figure it out. Yi Shiwen's aura was rising bit by bit. After forcing back the first wave of Beishan Shue's attack, his body began to glow with 7-colored light. The 7-colored divine robe appeared on his body. Then, he said faintly, "I have the 7-colored divine robe, but I didn't expect it to have such a transformation. Impossible! How could you have the 7-colored robe?" Beishan Shui exclaimed in disbelief. Suddenly, he came to a realization. He suddenly remembered something. "In the Yi family, there is a 7-colored divine robe. You are Yi Shiwen! You are Yi Shiwen!" He suddenly reacted. At this time, this was the only possibility. The 7-colored divine robe that was once left behind. His words immediately attracted the attention of Brother Phoenix. Brother Phoenix was originally watching the battle between the two in a relatively leisurely manner. However, when he heard the name Yi Shiwen, his eyes suddenly lit up. As if he had thought of something, his gaze was like that of a ferocious beast. In an instant, he stared at Yi Shiwen. If his gaze was still on young Kunping before, then now, he was completely focused on Yi Shiwen. On the contrary, young Kunping, who was previously very concerned and determined to win, suddenly had no way to attract his attention. Yi Shiwen! He is Yi Shiwen! He looked at Yi Shiwen with an inexplicable light in his eyes. On the other side, Beishan Shui finally reacted after realizing that Yi Shiwen's aura was still rising and his strength was still constantly improving. He absolutely could not let Yi Shiwen continue to grow. Otherwise, he might not be able to completely suppress Yi Shiwen when the time came. At this time, he let out a loud roar. A terrifying power leaped out of his body. He, who was wearing the 7-colored heavenly armor, was much more tyrannical than before. His whole body erupted with destructive power. In one breath, a tyrannical sword light pierced the sky and rushed straight to the 9th heaven, pouncing on Yi Shiwen. "Break for me!" Yi Shiwen shouted loudly and rushed forward fearlessly. Not to mention that he had already entered the tyrant body of the Great Accomplishment Realm, he was also wearing the 7-colored divine clothes. This was the best protection. He directly spread out his big hand and suppressed all directions. In the palm of his hand, endless laws were surging. This was his understanding of martial arts, and he suppressed the sword light on the spot. Boom! After a terrifying explosion, the entire void collapsed from the explosion. The terrifying power was completely boiling in Yi Shiwen's hand, but his big hand was like a huge cage, completely containing this terrifying power in his hand. There was not a trace of leakage. So powerful! Did I see it wrong? This Yi Shiwen can actually challenge an expert of the heaven realm. This Beishan Shui is already the best of the younger generation of the Beishan clan, but in front of Yi Shiwen, who has just broken through to the 7th level of the heaven realm, he can't gain the slightest advantage. This Yi Shiwen is so powerful. In the secret territory, everyone was completely shocked as if they had seen the most incredible thing. Especially those who came with Beishan Shui, it was even more unimaginable. They were very clear about Beishan Shui's strength. It could even be said that in their hearts, Beishan Shui was like a legendary god, and it was impossible for anyone to defeat him. Even Brother Feng, who Beishan Shui respected so much, they didn't take it to heart. They only felt that Beishan Shui should respect him so much because of his identity. It didn't mean that Beishan Shui was inferior to anyone. But now, this Yi Shiwen who suddenly appeared from the Yi clan was actually so amazing and terrifying. They finally found out Yi Shiwen's reputation from their dusty memories, but that was all. The legend of Yi Shiwen was still how he defeated an expert of the 9th level of the heaven realm a long time ago. As for what the current situation was, no one knew. This Yishiwen did not come out for a long time, but when he did, he completely shocked the world with a brilliant feat. Beishan Shue's expression suddenly changed slightly. His offensive was completely suppressed, or rather, his offensive could not form a completely overwhelming advantage. In front of Yishiwen, it could not form a complete suppression effect. And without waiting for him to continue thinking, Yishiwen's next wave of offensive had swept over in an instant. His big hand directly swept over from the sky. This big hand contained sword techniques, fist techniques, and palm techniques. It was all-encompassing, like a martial arts master, and fiercely pressed towards Beishan Shui. Beishan Shue's expression changed, but his reaction was not slow at all. Clang! In his hand, a long sword instantly condensed into shape, and then this long sword with lightning speed slashed towards Yishiwen's big hand. Brother Feng looked at Yishiwen's figure with a gloomy expression, seemingly hesitating whether to intervene or not. But before he could make a decision, Yishiwen had already fought with Beishan Shui. Yishiwen's big hand and Beishan Shue's sword light, Tianyuan sword technique, finally collided together, and a shocking explosion instantly swept out. With the two as the center, the space within a radius of 1,000 miles was completely turned into powder, and even the space further away had cracks appearing. The power of the aftermath of the fight between the two was evident. Yishiwen had retreated 5 steps, but Beishan Shui had retreated 6 steps. In such a short period of time, the difference in strength between the two sides had once again undergone a dramatic change. They had been evenly matched at first, but now Yishiwen had gained the upper hand, and all of this had happened in just a short period of time. Yishiwen's aura was still constantly rising. The accumulation of 10 years was fully manifested at this time, so even though he had entered the 7th level of Celestial Realm, he did not stop. On the contrary, the countless real elemental energy in his body was still constantly scouring, pushing him all the way to the peak of the 7th level of Celestial Realm. But this needed time, so his strength was constantly improving, becoming stronger little by little. In particular, the fight between the two had intensified the energy refining in Yishiwen's body. Now Yishiwen's body was like an empty pool, crazily absorbing energy, filling up the pool. However, there were several dragon veins in Tianyuan Mirror, so he was not afraid of not having enough energy to replenish it. It was precisely because of the existence of the dragon veins that Yishiwen did not need to rely on external energy absorption, so although he was constantly breaking through, the movement was very small to the outside world. Even Beishan Shui, who was fighting with him head-on, had only barely discovered at this time that Yishiwen was actually still constantly growing stronger. He had not yet completely consolidated his realm, not to mention the others. Even those below the celestial realm did not even realize what was happening. They still did not understand how Yishiwen and Beishan Shui were evenly matched before. How could there be such a big change in such a short period of time, suddenly becoming Yishiwen having the upper hand? While everyone was still puzzled, Yishiwen had already rushed forward impatiently. Chapter 1638. Pun! 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 In an instant, both sides clashed hundreds, thousands of times. They attacked like lightning. Fast. 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 Their combat strength had already stepped into the heaven realm. In the entire ancient Baron's continent, they could be called overlords of a generation. The terrifying scene caused the faces of the Yi family geniuses to turn ashen white. Although they knew that the main family had many Celestial Realm experts, they had never seen a Celestial Realm expert attack. Moreover, they went all out. Although their combat strength and range were limited to the initial heaven realm, to them, this was already a godlike existence that they had to look up to. Every time they exchanged blows, the void would shatter. Due to the speed at which they exchanged blows, the void did not have the time to repair itself. As a result, the void within the range of their exchange was in a state of constant shattering. Chaos poured out from within. Frightening shockwaves swept out in circles, bringing with them a frightening might that engulfed the area. Yishiwen's aura didn't decrease, and the more he fought, the stronger he became. Senior brother Yi Kuang, will senior brother Yi Shiwen be fine if this goes on? After all, he is only at the 7th level of the Heaven Realm. No matter how I look at it, it's not worth it to fight a Heaven Realm expert. Someone asked. At this time, only a few Heaven Realm experts could see the exact situation of the battle. They could see a little, but they needed time to react. Many people were worried that Yi Shiwen would not be able to hold on. After all, in everyone's impression, the gap between the Celestial Realm and the Celestial Realm was simply like the gap between heaven and earth. This was completely different from the feeling of Yi Shiwen defeating a Celestial Realm expert at the 6th Celestial Realm. Although that was shocking, it was still within the range of everyone's understanding. Now, it had indeed exceeded the range of everyone's understanding. His strength is complete! Yi Kuang looked at Yi Shiwen with a complicated expression. Originally, he thought that Yi Shiwen had been left far behind by them. Until now, there hadn't been any news of him stepping into the Heaven Realm. Now, it seemed like he had underestimated Yi Shiwen. In fact, everyone had underestimated Yi Shiwen. Along with his combat strength reaching Celestial Realm, his position in the Yi family and even the human race was totally different. Although they didn't know how he did it, it wasn't important anymore. In the eyes of those who hadn't stepped into the Celestial Realm, Beishan Shui actually had the upper hand in this battle. Beishan Shui was at ease while Yi Shiwen was like a maniac. In the eyes of ordinary people, Yi Shiwen was challenging a Celestial Realm expert at the 7th level of Celestial Realm. If he wasn't crazy, how could he block the opponent's attack? They also understood the principle of not becoming a demon without going crazy. If they were forced to a dead end, they would most likely have the same mentality. However, in the eyes of a master like Yi Kuang, it was a completely different story. Yi Shiwen's imposing aura was like a rainbow, and his strength was increasing every minute and second. Unexpectedly, he had completely suppressed Beishan Shui. Beishan Shui seemed to be at ease, but her offensive power was suppressed within a certain range, unable to spread out. Yi Shiwen seemed to be very anxious, but in fact, he was the one who truly grasped the initiative. As time passed, Yi Shiwen's aura continued to rise, and he completely grasped the initiative. Unbelievable, he actually used Beishan Shui to test his strength, Yi Kuang said in disbelief. He slowly and finally saw that Yi Shiwen was using Beishan Shui bit by bit to familiarize himself with the combat strength of a Celestial Realm expert. This completely surpassed all the levels of power that he could come into contact with before. Even someone as monstrous as Yi Shiwen couldn't control this level of power in one go. So, he actually used Beishan Shui as his sparring partner. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but have a strange feeling rise in his heart. Using a Celestial Realm expert as a sparring partner, how many people could do this? Not to mention how many people could do it, just how many people dared to think about it was a huge problem. What? Impossible! In a battle like this, Yi Shiwen is actually just testing his strength. If that's the case, then it's too scary. Who would have thought that Yi Shiwen, who hasn't had any news for 10 years, would suddenly become so scary? It's simply unbelievable. Many people were instantly shocked. If it was someone else who said this, they naturally wouldn't believe it, but the person who said this was Yi Kuang, an overlord of the Celestial Realm. Nonsense! How is that possible? Beishan Shui's strength is superb, and he is a Celestial Realm expert. Although I don't know what kind of evil method your Yi Shiwen used to have his current combat strength, but to challenge a Celestial Realm expert at the 7th level of the Celestial Realm, how can he expect to last long? As long as time passes, that evil method will be broken, and then he will die. Some of the experts that Beishan Shui brought didn't believe it at all, or rather, didn't dare to believe it. Facing these people, Yi Kuang couldn't even be bothered to say another word. Summer insects can't talk about ice. What did these people know? Not only Yi Kuang, but even Brother Feng, who had a contemptuous look on his face, seemed to be looking at Yi Shiwen with a strange look in his eyes. This kid was not simple, and was much more tyrannical than he had imagined. The combat strength of Beishan Shui, who used the rainbow heavenly armor, was already much stronger than before. Although it wasn't as strong as his level, it couldn't be considered weak either. In the end, he was completely restricted by Yishuin within a certain range, and fought very sullenly. This was not something that ordinary people could do. But he wasn't nervous at all. Instead, he became even more excited. This was Yishuin. This was a little interesting. If it was an ant that couldn't resist, even if it was trampled to death, there was nothing to be happy about. The more powerful one was, the more he liked to see the despair in their eyes when they were defeated by him in the end. Moreover, this person was Yishuin. And in the Heaven's secret realm, there were also a few old antiques constantly exchanging their divine senses. This junior is called Yishuin, right? The younger generation will surpass us in time. In the past, I only knew that Yi Su Kong was the leader of this generation, followed by Yi Kuang and Yi Qiong. But I didn't think that there would be such a strong person hidden. With the cultivation of the seventh sky of the celestial realm, this kind of strength, even in the distant past, was a shocking thing. Isn't that so? For the Yi clan, having such a top genius is undoubtedly a blessing. With the growth of this generation of young masters, there is less and less room for us, the older generation, to move around. It's really the case that the waves behind drive on the waves before, and each generation is stronger than the last. In the field, Beishan Shui was constantly being suppressed by Yishuin, but he couldn't fight back. It was very strenuous for him to fight. His eyes flashed with a look of horror. He had never encountered such a difficult opponent. He relied on the seven-colored sky armor. Even if it was only in the form of the seven-colored godly robe, it was much more tyrannical than many people. It was difficult to find an opponent who could rival him among the same generation. One person could defeat 10 people, no matter how powerful the enemy was. It was difficult to break his seven-colored sky armor, and even his seven-colored godly robe could not be broken. But he didn't expect that this Yishuin was even more unscrupulous than him. Wearing the seven-colored godly robe that was stolen from the Beishan clan, he ran amok, and once he attacked, the sky would shatter. It was extremely terrifying. His fist technique, his palm technique, as soon as he attacked, it was filled with the profound meaning of martial arts, profound and terrifying. He couldn't even imagine how Yishuin, who was only at the 7th level of celestial realm, could have such profound martial arts comprehension. No matter how he thought about it, it was impossible, and it was also an unscientific thing. In the field, he understood the horror of this crazy man more than anyone else, and he seemed to be at ease. But if he looked carefully, he would find that his defensive circle was also being forced by Yishuin to become smaller and smaller, and the circle that he could freely use was also becoming smaller and smaller. More and more aggrieved. And in contrast, Yishuin's aura was still constantly rising, and every time Yishuin's aura rose a little, his defensive circle was also a little smaller. It could be said that in the process of continuous decline, this speed was astonishing. Yi Kuang and Brother Feng were able to see things clearly, but Yishuin was also able to see that Yishuin was simply using him as a sparring partner. Although this was only his guess, but as the battle continued, Yishuin's strength continued to rise. It seemed that he was becoming more and more proficient in all aspects of this realm and his understanding of the various aspects of this realm. And as he became more and more proficient, the process of continuous improvement of his strength also accelerated. This process was like boiling a frog in warm water. He had the support of the lingqi of the dragon vein in his body, so his movements were very small. Otherwise, Beishan Shui wouldn't have noticed it just now. But when he realized it, it was already too late. If at the beginning, Yishuin's strength was only comparable to his, then even if he became stronger, it was only a little stronger, and he still had a way to break free. But now it was different. He had been completely suppressed by Yishuin, and it was impossible to escape. After all, this was the home field of Yi family, not their Beishan clan. There would not be an old monster to support him. At this time, he began to sincerely regret in his heart. Why did he have to wade in this muddy water? This matter had nothing to do with him, but he had to participate in it. He had too blindly believed in his own strength, and did not want to encounter a monster. Warm up, it's over! Chapter 1639. As a Heaven Realm expert, and the overlord of the ancient Baron's continent, he was confident that he could escape no matter where he went. However, he didn't expect to fall into Yishiwen's strategy of boiling a frog in warm water. Warm up is over! He heard Yishiwen's relaxed voice from the opposite side. The muscles on Yishiwen's body began to vibrate. A powerful force was boiling in his body, and the bones all over his body began to crackle. It was as if he had been reborn, especially compared to when he first appeared. At that time, he was like a child with the power of an adult. He couldn't control his power at all. Although his punches and kicks contained great power, they were also somewhat wasteful. He could achieve the effect that could be achieved with only 10% of his power, but he had to use 20% or even 30% of his power to achieve it. However, as time passed, such situations became rarer and rarer. He had truly mastered his own power, and every punch and kick was ingenious. This was what Beishan Shui feared the most. Whether an expert was powerful or not, of course, depended on how much power he had. However, there was another very important point, and that was how much power he could exert. Whether it was more or less was not a good thing. Only when it was just right would it be the best. Although Yishiwen's power was still increasing, he had completely adapted to this level of power. He wouldn't perform like he did just now. What? So fast? Beishan Shui was shocked. Even Brother Feng and Yi Kuang, who were not far away, were abnormally surprised, especially Yi Kuang. His eyes were filled with inexplicable horror because this was the second time he saw Yishiwen's shocking improvement. Last time, he was Yishiwen's opponent. He could only watch helplessly as Yishiwen consolidated his realm in a very short time. Yishiwen then became a powerful existence that could compete with him. This time, as a bystander, he could see it more clearly. At the same time, he was even more shocked. At this time, he could only describe it as a golden scale. Yishiwen repelled Beishan Shui's attack with his fist, and almost in a flash, his other hand grasped the air, and a powerful force flew across the sky towards Beishan Shui to grab her. Damn it, break for me! At this moment, Beishan Shui let out a series of furious roars. Sword after sword light swept out. Every sword light could sweep out tens of kilometers, shattering everything in its path. Clang! 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 A violent sound was heard, followed by a huge explosion. The sword light fiercely chopped Yishiwen's big hand, setting off an endless storm. However, it couldn't stop the advance of Yishiwen's big hand in the slightest. His big hand erupted with 7 colored rays of light and golden divine rays of light in succession, and blocked these sword lights. His body was truly tyrannical to an unimaginable extent. His big hand suddenly clawed towards the void, and grabbed towards Beishan Shui's body. Bang! Beishan Shui was caught unprepared. She had no time to dodge and was caught by Yishiwen on the spot. Damn it, how could he be so fast? Beishan Shui roared angrily. In his heart, he was completely shocked. He didn't expect Yishiwen to be so fast. He was so fast that it was impossible for him to tear the void to escape. This was also related to the fact that the space and secret territory number 1 was extremely difficult to tear. This was the place where the younger generation of the Yi family gathered, and absolutely no accidents were allowed. Therefore, the space here had also been strengthened countless times, and it wouldn't allow the space to be torn. If it was so easy to tear, someone might come in unknowingly. But even so, it couldn't hide the fact that Yishiwen's attack was as fast as lightning. It was fast, so fast that it was unparalleled. Even a celestial realm expert like him couldn't react in time. Open for me! Beishan Shui roared angrily. A powerful force erupted from his body, instantly sweeping out in all directions, forming a huge energy storm that wanted to break Yishiwen's big hand. "It's useless!" Yishiwen snorted coldly. His big hand directly closed. The endless energy in his big hand churned and exploded, but there was no way to escape from Yishiwen's big hand that was like a cage. On the contrary, the terrifying power churned within, and it even injured Beishan Shui, who was wearing the rainbow sky armor. Ah! Suddenly, Beishan Shui let out a blood-curdling scream that shook the entire Secret Realm No. 1. The 7-colored heavenly armor that he was wearing was suddenly stripped away by Yishiwen. After leaving Beishan Shui's body, the 7-colored heavenly armor had become an ordinary 7-colored divine robe. Although its defensive effect was still extraordinary, it was still incomparable to the 7-colored heavenly armor that could comprehensively enhance the power of a celestial realm expert. As expected, this needs to be combined with a special cultivation method to become the rainbow sky armor? Yishiwen said with narrowed eyes. Beishan Shui, who was in his big hand, screamed. After being stripped of the rainbow sky armor, his body was covered in blood. This was because to cultivate the rainbow sky armor, one had to first refine the rainbow godly robe into one's body. This was the only way to cultivate it. At this moment, being stripped of the rainbow sky armor was equivalent to being forcefully ripped out of his body. His flesh was a mess. Moreover, after losing the rainbow sky armor, his power was greatly reduced. His strength also plummeted, and he was no longer as heroic as before when he was able to fight against Yishiwen. Looking at this scene, everyone was stunned. They didn't dare to believe it. What happened? In such a short period of time, the change suddenly happened. It happened in an instant, without any warning. Especially in the eyes of those experts below the celestial realm. Weren't the two of them fighting on equal footing? How did Yishiwen become so strong all of a sudden? In their eyes, there was almost no process of transformation between strong and weak. It seemed that Yishiwen had been hiding his strength all along, and suddenly burst out to suppress Beishan Shui, who had the 7-colored heavenly armor. What's going on? Did I miss something just now? How did Yishiwen suddenly become so strong? It looks too unbelievable. Could it be that Yishiwen had been hiding his strength all this while? Then he lured Beishan Shui to make a move, and then gave him a thunderous blow? So strong. What did Yishiwen experience in these 10 years? How could he suddenly become so strong? Everyone in the Yi family started discussing. They didn't dare to believe that Yishiwen had actually become so strong. However, the ones who truly found it hard to believe were the experts that Beishan Shui had brought with him. Many of them were his followers and admirers. Many of them already viewed Beishan Shui as a true god, omnipotent and undefeatable. Although Beishan Shui didn't have the upper hand just now, at least in their eyes, he wasn't at a disadvantage. How did everything suddenly change? The two of them, who were originally evenly matched, instantly decided the victor. This is impossible. I don't believe it. I must have seen wrongly. Illusion, this must be an illusion. How could Lord Shui lose? This is impossible. Hoax, this is a hoax of the Yi family through and through. Ah! Beishan Shui screamed again. Yishiwen's big hand tightened. His body was being squeezed by Yishiwen. Brother Feng, save me! At this time, he had no choice but to ask Brother Feng for help. Whoosh! A fiery red sword light descended from the sky and slashed down fiercely with lightning speed. The big chi-condensed hand that Yishiwen had drawn was slashed by this fiery red sword light on the spot. It was directly cut into 2 halves on the spot, and then it burned fiercely. A sword light came out and directly broke Beishan Shui's siege. At this time, Beishan Shui barely had a chance to breathe. He quickly retreated and escaped from the battlefield. His eyes were full of horror as he looked at Yishiwen. He had never suffered such a big loss before. He was almost crushed to death by Yishiwen's hands. Without the 7-colored heavenly armor, his essence, chi, and spirit had dropped by several levels. The 7-colored heavenly armor had been stripped from his body. Especially the crushing defeat just now. For him, it was like a nightmare. If it wasn't for Brother Feng just now, the outcome would be unpredictable. His body was originally dripping with blood, but at this time, it began to recover quickly. The blood that originally flowed out also turned into pieces of scars, and then slid down from his body. He had returned to his original appearance, but he no longer had the arrogant look he had when he first came. Especially the despising eyes of the Yi family, it made him crazy, but he didn't dare to make a move. Yi Kuang on the side looked at him covetously. Without the seven-colored heavenly armor, his confidence had also dropped by several levels. He no longer dared to say that he could defeat Yi Kuang. And at this time, in the battlefield, Yi Shiwen, who everyone had been waiting for a long time, finally faced the culprit who directly destroyed his number one secret realm, Brother Feng. This Brother Feng stood in the void with his arms crossed. His eyes were unusually cold, and he looked at Yi Shiwen coldly as if he was looking at a dead person. It seemed that he was sure that Yi Shiwen was going to die. Just now, I finished warming up. Now, let's properly calculate your sin for destroying my secret realm, Yi Shiwen said lightly. Sin, in this world there are people who can convict me, but unfortunately it's not your human race, and it's not you. The corner of this Brother Feng's mouth slightly raised, revealing a somewhat sarcastic smile, as if Yi Shiwen had done the most overconfident thing. Ridiculous, very ridiculous. I don't care who convicts you, but you have to pay the price for destroying my secret realm. No one can provoke me without paying the price, Yi Shiwen said. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.